Welcome to episode 74 of the Reptile Gumbo podcast. We are joined again by Corey Martin as our fill-in this week. How's it going, Corey?
Hey guys, how are you?
Good so far.
If it would quit raining, it'd be better.
Yeah, a little soggy.
Every freaking day.
It hasn't been too wet. It's been like in the 70s here, though. That's been so weird.
Shut up. It has not been in the 70s here.
Today wasn't bad because it rained all freaking.
Today wasn't bad because it was raining, and the lightning and thunder was so bad it knocked the power out at the shop for like 10 seconds.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd opened the door to look at the storm, and I was like, I saw the lightning, and then the power went out. I was like, I'm going to close the door. We're going to stay inside.
Wow.
But
that's no good.
No. But when it wasn't raining this week, we got to go herping. So that was cool.
Did you find anything cool this time?
We found something every time.
Except for the other morning. We only found dead snakes.
Yeah, that did suck. But we found broadbanded water snakes, really pretty broadbanded water snakes. Cottonmouths almost every time.
Really?
Unfortunately, have never chased us. I can't.
Yeah, they're broken or something.
I don't.
Throw sticks at them.
We saw crayfish snake. That was the first crayfish snake I've ever seen.
Well, it was a glossy swamp snake, which is a type of crayfish.
It was also a glossy crayfish snake as well. Is one name for it as well. We saw the green Mississippi green water snake.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
A decay snake, which was the only thing that actually musked on me.
Yep.
Out of all the water snakes, that was
wow. That's amazing.
I went by myself a couple of mornings ago because somebody didn't wake up.
Yeah.
And found a prairie king snake along with a bunch of cottonmouths and Mississippi greens.
And then the weirdest thing we found was a 6-foot alligator sitting in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
We came off a side street and we're like, what is that in the road up there?
We had just come from down there.
There was a car stopped on the other side of whatever it was, but it was an alligator, but it was tail towards us. So it was hard to
small.
Then it like turned and we're like, holy shit, that's a big alligator.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a lot of miscellaneous alligators in that area?
We've seen 5 or 6 of them
out there.
Really?
out there herping, but not, they were all like 3-footers.
Except for that guy.
Except for that one. He was a lot bigger.
He was well fed.
Yeah. It's where we're herping at is in the general vicinity of Brazos Bend State Park, which is known for having lots of alligators.
Okay, someone posted on our group this week. It was funny. They posted in our group a picture of an alligator with a bunch of baby alligators from the state park.
Right. So yeah, it's fun. My goal is to find I really would like to find a pair at some point of speckled king snakes.
Yeah.
Breed them.
Yeah.
I would like to breed them and then release them back where I found them.
Yeah. I got a hunting permit for the sole purpose of being able to keep snakes, I find.
Yep. Exactly. Well,
yeah, so I apparently can't get one of those.
So James doesn't actually get to do anything with the snakes, but look at them.
6 months.
Yeah.
I have to live here for 6 months before I can even get a fishing license.
Well, he could get one.
Well, I can get out of state.
$300.
I can get an out-of-state fishing license or an out-of-state, I can get an out-of-state fishing license for a fairly reasonable price. But to get the thing for the snakes, I have to have a hunting license, and that is not a fairly reasonable price. So yeah, I just get to look at snakes and go, hey, look, that's a snake, and I can't do anything with it. So. Oh well.
Well,
we also saw out there. We've
seen
all the mammals,
every mammal,
except for a bobcat.
Yep, we've seen pigs and possums and raccoons. We unfortunately drove down the road and turned around, and came back 10 minutes later, and there was somebody had hit a barred owl.
Yeah, a big barred owl.
Oh,
it was dead in the road. It was beautiful, but
what was the bird we saw the other day? That was awesome. Big bird of prey.
A caracara.
The caracara, which was really cool. I'd never seen one of those in person.
We saw, and then James was like, the only thing we haven't seen is a coyote. And then we get on the freeway coming home, and one runs across the freeway in front of us.
Yeah.
Our neighborhood is lousy with coyotes. We get them all the time.
I bet.
Like tons of them. And we also have a bobcat that hangs out in our neighborhood.
Really?
But I live in this like suburban neighborhood, and we'll see coyotes just like walking down the street. It's like, it's actually not cool. Like it's not good for them.
There's a population of coyotes near Wrigley Field in Chicago.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
They come out in the middle of the night. They think they're fairly certain they live down in the storm sewers.
So interesting.
Yeah, and they make a living there.
What always gets me with coyotes is hearing people that are, we'll say ignorant, but I really want to say unintelligent. That always say that they want to kill them because they treat them like they're invasive. I mean, they're not invasive. They got there naturally. Yeah. Like just because coyotes weren't where you were 30 years ago doesn't mean they didn't get there naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah. You kill all of the other predators, the coyotes go, hey, let's move in. But
Yep.
So that's our coyote talk for the night. Nathan says it sounds like I'm enjoying Texas. I am enjoying Texas, Nathan. Nathaniel, if it would stop raining.
Yeah, it's been terrible. I mean, where we were herping at, it was flooded. Like we had to drive through water on the road the first night we went.
Wow.
Yeah, houses like with water all underneath them. And
we passed houses where they had to park on the road, and then I'm guessing just wade through probably like knee deep water to get to their house.
Is it the kind of rain where it's just the ground's saturated, so anything that comes just kind of sits? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's miserable.
Yeah. But in a few months we'll be like, we need some rain.
Yep. It's the way it works.
Yeah, Nathaniel says they did the same thing with the wolves. Yeah, they killed the wolves. That's why the coyotes are there now.
Yeah.
You can't find any red wolves because you kill all the red wolves.
Yeah.
And now you have coyotes. Or you have the wolves out west where they killed them all. Then they brought in new wolves, which aren't the wolves they killed.
Right. Yeah, they're bringing in the Arctic gray wolves.
And now I have a whole new problem.
Yeah.
Anyways, so our guest, speaking of out west, I'll go ahead and bring in our guest. I'll pop him up on the screen.
Who lives in Colorado?
Jason Milleranovich, who we tried to have on 3 weeks or whenever it was. And we had technical difficulties, so we will work through those tonight. But Jason Miloradovich of Top Line Constrictors, how's it going, Jason?
It's going good. How you guys doing?
Good so far.
Yeah.
I had a good week because I started feeding my rainbow boas yesterday, my new babies.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
I got 4 out of 10 to eat last night.
Before they shed?
No, I waited till they shed. They take forever. I haven't bred rainbows successfully bred them since 2007. I really haven't tried that much. And I finally tried again, luckily. And I've talked about before, my male that I had forever was the dad and he passed away. But I apparently forgot how long it takes them to shed because with like boas and like sand boas, those guys shed within about a week. But these rainbow boas, it took two good weeks for them to start shedding. But then I got them set up individually last night, which also probably threw a bunch of them off, which is why a bunch probably didn't eat. So I'll try them again in a week, and I'm sure they'll be fine.
Are they usually pretty easy to start?
Jason can talk about that. I know he breeds them probably more than I do.
Rainbows usually are for me. Every once in a while, I guess it's a little. Honestly, start the majority.
See now,
we're losing
pretty feisty when they're babies, and so they have a pretty snappy response. And you can.
I screwed ourselves up, and now yes. Ugh. Hold on. All right, Robert, carry the show. Give me a second.
What?
Carry the show. Give me a second.
Oh, we're live? No, I'm joking. No, I mean we do have a little bit of a delay with Jason, but it was getting
it was
getting kind of choppy. But yeah, I mean those rainbow boas are definitely feisty. James like stuck his hand in there the other night and had like 4 of them hanging off of his hand.
Oh wow!
In the tub. I mean, he had a glove on because
that's good though. That's like feisty babies or hungry babies. So
yeah, which he got 4 of them to eat last night. So maybe that was the 4 that were biting him.
That's awesome.
Who knows? Yeah, I got bitten last night for the first time in a long time feeding colubrids by like a 6-month-old scaleless corn snake. I dropped the mouse in there and it fell in his water dish. So I reached in there with the tongs to pull it out, and he shot right past it and grabbed me on the finger. And I'm like holding him up in the air, and he's like trying to eat my finger, and he's maybe half the diameter of my finger. And I'm like, dude, come on!
Wow!
It didn't even break the skin. He's so little, but.
Oh, that's funny.
I'm more afraid that I'm going to hurt this expensive corn snake trying to get it off of me.
Yeah.
And but he let go and then grabbed the mouse. So you trying to get him to call in?
I still have to. I still have like the flinch reaction sometimes, and I'm still like trying to train it out of me.
Oh yeah, no, it's
a hard one to break.
With this,
let's hold on one second. Let me see if this works. Jason, can you hear us? Oh, hold on.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I heard him that time.
Well, that was on here. So hold on, let me pause this or mute him there. Deal with us, people. We're technology is not our friend. All right, Jason, can you hear us now?
I can. It's pretty quiet, but I can hear you.
We got him through the phone.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
All right, so you're our first guest through our phone line. I haven't tried that before, so
it's working really well though. It's good timing and we can hear well.
Yeah, it's working as long as
there's no lag now.
As long as my phone doesn't die, we're good.
All right, so when you cut off before, you're starting to say about how they're like bitey little suckers.
Oh yeah, for the rainbows, yeah, they do really good actually. They're usually a pretty good starter. They're feisty. They're probably the worst of anything I keep, but they calm down the fastest with regular handling. But funny story, talking about getting bit a lot. A lot of times what I do when I'm cleaning cages is I'll take a baby out and I'll hold it in one hand, I'll clean with the other hand, just to get it used to being handled a little bit. And then the 2020 babies I had last year, hold on.
So, yeah, go ahead and turn off or mute your mic on your computer. That way we still have you on video.
That would be best.
Sean Gray said most baby boas are assholes. I don't find that to be true. I find that to be 100% true with the rainbows. Why am I still?
I think we're hearing the sound from his end come through on the phone.
The phone, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, he just needs to mute his computer.
Yeah, I'm not getting it to turn off. I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Just turn the volume down. See if that'll work.
Hey, there you
go. I think we're good.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yep,
we're good.
Okay, I just lost the visual when I did that, but
we can still see you.
But anyway, so I was holding a baby in one hand, cleaning the tub. My kids are in the room with me, and my, of course, it's nice and hot in there, so I don't have a shirt on, and I got one right onto my belly. They thought it was the funniest thing in the world.
No.
Yeah,
but, they got small mouths.
Yeah, but I've always said as adults, they have insanely large teeth, way longer than I thought that they would have until I saw my male yawn when he was about 3 or 4. And that's when I realized I did not want to get bit by him.
Interesting. I didn't know.
It makes you suspect they're probably bird eaters a lot more than we feed them in captivity.
100%. Because I always assumed just because of their coloring and everything that they live on the ground because they look very much like they would live in leaf litter. So I figured they'd have something more like a boa constrictor teeth, which I'm not saying boa constrictors have small teeth, but they don't have those massive recurved teeth like arboreal snakes. But man, you watch an adult rainbow yawn, it'll make you think twice about sticking your hand in there.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what Lana said. Her Burmese babies were biters as well. And she messaged us the other night and was like, well, I already got tagged to as soon as they were coming out of the egg.
Wow.
Yeah, I like with Sambos, I tend to find that they don't bite that much. And with the boa constrictors, I don't tend to have that much of an issue either. John Grant says I'm a baby when it comes to bites. I'm not a baby when it comes to bites. I just don't like getting bit. I'm not look, I've watched John Grant grab snakes and he doesn't give 2 shits if it's going to bite him. Yeah, I don't live that life.
A customer asked John Grant what's it like to get bit, and he goes, "Here, watch!" Bam, and lets this king snake bite him on the finger. It's not bad. Look,
no,
yeah,
I don't reach into my my baby rainbow boas without gloves on.
Really?
I refuse. I'm not getting bit. I got my friend went over there because I wasn't there when they were born, so my friend went over there to get them from the mom, and he got bit by every single one of them. I was on the phone with him, and all I could hear was "ow, ow, ow." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that." I just refused.
That's normal with those.
See, that's leather gloves. I can handle them and still not get bit. It's great. But they have been calming down. I've tried to reach in there and mess with them on a regular basis, and they've definitely calmed down some.
And once you get them out, they tend to bite in the cage, but once they're in your hand, they calm down a little bit more. You just got to kind of work through it, hold them for a while, and they'll calm down pretty quick.
See, and I got
some to a blind lady one time, and that was one of her criteria. She wanted babies, but she wanted them real calm, and I had them calm down within 2 weeks, able to ship them.
See, I got spoiled because when I got my male at an expo in 2003, he was great. He never struck. He never ever struck at me as I owned him. The only time he ever struck at anybody was my dad when he was taking care of him, but he was also in the process of feeding him. That's the only time ever. So I got spoiled by him. So every other one, when someone's like rainbows are bitey, I'm like, yeah, I didn't experience that with mine until they started having babies. And I was like, yes, rainbows are bitey. All of them. They come out that way. Sean Gray said he wanted to say hi, Jason. He was just dropping in to say hi.
Oh, hey, Sean. Hey, Sean.
But
yeah, I lost the screen for some reason. I can't see anything either now.
Hey, as long as we got audio, we're good. So
cool.
What
better than last time anyway.
How long have you been keeping rainbows?
I've been keeping rainbows since either 96 or 97. I don't remember exactly when it was. I got my so back then there was no internet really to look at on stuff, and so I had decided, there was the mall pet shop had boas, and I really wanted a boa. I knew my parents were going to be pretty against it, and what I did is I worked right by the library, so I checked out every book I could on snakes so that I could have arguments for everything they said, and I said, no, this is the truth, this is what's going to happen. And so as soon as I turned 16, I said, I'm going to go buy this snake. They were holding it for me already at the mall, and anyway, in the course, so I bought, it was just a Colombian boa. But in the course of all that research, in one of those books, I came across a picture of a rainbow boa. And I was blown away. I had no idea anything like this existed. And then, so I'd had my Colombian boa just, 6 months or so. And I had a subscription to Reptiles back then. And, you remember the classifieds that used to be in the back?
Yes.
So I was flipping through the classifieds and I saw this ad, and I had no idea who the guy was selling them, but it was a guy named Peter Cal Reptiles. And so I called him up with my mom's credit card and I bought 2 of them. And then I think about 4 months later, I called him again and bought 2 more. So I had 4 of them, right? Like that first year. And then that's really all I was allowed to get till I moved out.
So were those your first snakes?
No, that Colombian red tail,
right.
well, that Colombian boa, back then they were called Colombian red tails.
I still
That
call them
was
red
my
tails.
very first. But the rainbows were a close second because I was just.
So you
talk about being enamored with something. Like when I saw those, I couldn't believe it was real.
You ran into the same issue as me then, because I'm sure you found out at the very beginning they're not as easy to keep as a Colombian.
So I got lucky out of I guess it would be pure luck, honestly. I live in Colorado. It's a very, very dry state. So it is challenging to keep snakes here. Like even my ball pythons will dry out if I'm not careful. And so when I was a kid, I had this deal with this pet shop guy that if he had broken tanks, I was doing some odd jobs for him, and I'd get these broken tanks, and I'd usually replace one pane of glass with plexiglass or something.
Yeah.
And that's what I was turning into my tanks, and I was making my own screen tops for him. Huge no-no now, right? So I had screen tops. I had carpet on the bottom, but I wanted them to look fancy. So I had those little tiny fountains going in them at all the time. And I think that allowed me to really thrive in there because they had all this extra humidity because those fountains were splashing everywhere.
Yeah, they're a tricky one when it comes to humidity. And we talked about early on when I started the show, we talked about mistakes that we made in keeping. My biggest mistake ever came with rainbow boas. I killed my entire litter that I produced in 2007. I moved from Louisiana. I moved from Alabama to Louisiana, and at one point I was living by myself, and I went and changed water bowls, and I just forgot to go back and put water bowls back in. And I think about 2 days went by, and I came back and they were all dead. They're definitely one that will dry out very quick, whereas like something like Sambo that's definitely not an issue. And so I'm very determined to make sure I stay on top of watering these guys every day because I know that the along with the high humidity, they have to have water way more than say a boa constrictor. Boa constrictors are almost bulletproof.
Yeah, because a lot of snakes can go, but you're right. 2 days is about it with those guys. And one thing that I would focus on with those two that I think a lot of people miss is they put this, they really focus on humidity, but those need hydration as well. And fresh water, because I don't know if you've noticed, but a lot of times they're almost snobby about it, but they don't want an old bowl in there.
Oh yeah, you go fill in a new
bowl. The water
bowl.
gets a little stagnant, they'll ignore it.
Yeah, because as soon as you go fill the water, like if you can go dump that water after 2 days, 3 days of being in there, go dump it, put in new water, you'll see them go drink almost within 30 minutes. They'll go drink new water.
And I think people miss that when we talk about hydration, that doesn't mean your humidity levels are good. Because I hear that all the time. I'll say a snake looks dehydrated, and people tell me, "Oh, my humidity's perfect." Well, it's two separate things.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that's one thing when we talk about humidity. And I forget who mentioned it before. I've heard it before, but hydration is a huge issue that people look past. Like you said, they really focus, especially on the high humidity animals like rainbows, on making sure they get. Because that was one issue we ran into early on was how to get the humidity high. And we had it in a glass tank with a screen lid. And then we bought PVC and cut plexiglass and cut plexiglass to cover part of the lid. And then later on, we built cages. And then we had issues with too much. It was, I don't know how he made it 18 years because it was a learning experience through the first like 5 for sure. But water is a huge thing. And it's for a lot of them. But I mean, something like those guys, it's very tricky, especially because you're talking about something that comes from the same places, red-tailed boas. And red-tailed boas are much tougher. Darren says his blood will only drink fresh water. I think we underestimate how many of these animals are drinking from moving water.
Right.
That's a really good point.
They're either drinking from a fresh pool of rainwater or dew, which is very fresh water, or moving water. They're not coming to stagnant pools of water in the wild and taking in large amounts. So.
Well, and that's true. If it's moving, it is keeping a lot fresher. And, a lot of these are found, near riverbanks and moving water. So that's a good point.
And so you've been keeping them since the late 90s. When did you start breeding them?
I had my first litter of them in 2002. And I wasn't home for it, of course. I was out of town. I was actually in Texas. And so I got to come home to all those little bitey, feisty babies. But I had a big enough cage. They were in there with their mom. They had enough hiding spots that they all did pretty well that time. But I was kind of hooked, once you start having live babies born, I don't know, there's something about it. It's hard to ever think that that's not going to be in your life anymore,
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well,
yeah, it's just, I don't know. It just becomes who you are. I've had snakes in my house more than half my life now. It's just, I don't know that I could ever give it up,
I've talked about before, there's been moments in the last 20 so years I've been keeping snakes where, I'm like, man, I could get rid of everything. And then I think, I can't get rid of everything. I don't know who I'd be if I didn't have a room full of snakes. Like that's a big part of, all of us in our social circles become the snake person. More not at herp shows or whatever with the other snake people, but when we're around normal people, we are the snake people. Even my wife,
you're the weirdo with a room full of snakes.
I contend that we're the normal people. They're fucking weird snakes.
Well, even my wife, she's not a snake person, but she's married to me and she helps with snakes. But when she's talking with other people, they treat her as like she's a snake person. I'm like, and it only takes like having one, and then you're that weird person.
Yep.
And then they go, "Ooh, I'll never come to your house." Great. You weren't invited anyway.
Yeah. John Grant says the difference between captive bred babies and import Brazilian rainbows is huge. I would imagine.
I would imagine the imports. I've never owned an import, but I would imagine that they're probably even more defensive than the captive stuff is. But
yeah, I don't know how.
In my mind, the thing with imports is, you can get an older one, but by the time you get it established to the rhythms of where you live, it's probably going to take just as long as it would for you to raise up a captive baby. And I don't know that it's like, for me, it's not really worth dealing with the idea of parasites and other issues you might have with it.
That's my biggest issue is I don't want to put in, and it's going to be it's pure laziness on my part. I know I don't want to put in the time for deworming and having to deal with this and getting fecal. I don't want to do it, which sucks because there are some snakes that are still imported that are snakes that I want.
Mm-hmm.
I want Saharan sand boas, and almost nobody is captive breeding them because they're super cheap and you can get them imported. And I just don't feel like dealing with an import. Also, an import that then I've got to try and get it to eat frozen little mice like everything else in my collection eats because that's all I want to feed it. Because again, I'm lazy and I fully understand that. So I don't take the time. I also want Calabar's burrowing pythons, and they're imported until they can get bred by Dr. Wyman, and then I'm getting one.
Yeah. But actually, Saharan sand boas were the only thing I've ever bought that was imported, and that's kind of what turned me off. I had I lost both of them pretty quickly. The male had pretty bad mouth rot, and it's quarantine's one thing, but with something like that, it's like an entirely different level of quarantine. You know what I mean?
It's quarantine.
I have been through it recently with imports, and I'm turned off of it for a while because I've had some pretty intensive care I've had to do, and it's just too much.
Yeah, that sucks. You lost really, and I don't want to put a price tag on animals, but you lost animals that also aren't common. You lost very uncommon.
That was the thing that really sucked about it, because I had a male Apodora, and those are hard to come by. So
yeah, only a handful of people have them, and it wasn't anything of your fault. Like,
nope.
And the biggest problem I hear with a lot of the imports is when people get them in, they start trying to worm them right away. And the problem is the importing process is very stressful. So their immune system is kind of shot then.
Yeah.
So you've got to get them in, get them settled, and then you've got to treat it. It's just a whole process.
It's a whole thing. Yeah.
I'm not made for it. I can't. I like my animals coming from someone else's house into my house, and all I got to check is for mites, and then we're good. But so are Brazilian rainbows the only ones you have, Jason?
No, I've got Brazilians, Colombians, and Argentines.
See, I
Argentines. That's cool.
I can't get behind Colombians.
They will not breed. I have been trying, and I don't know what it is with my pair, but they just they're just not ready. I don't know. They're up to size, but they just don't give each other any attention. So, it's always the animals you want the most. The one that you really want the litter out of this year.
Yes.
That's the one that'll take 2 more years than you expected to.
Yep.
Without fail.
My problem with Colombians is just not as pretty.
Murphy's Law, but it's I'll get there. But
Colombians just don't have that color. Brazilians, when it comes to all the rainbows, Brazilians are the epitome of what I want in a rainbow boa. And I've talked about before, when you get to the morphs like hypos and all this stuff, I'm like, you're taking away my favorite part of a rainbow boa, which is that color. That color.
Yeah, I was going to say I like the leucistic Colombians, but then it's just a totally different thing than what you really. It's just a white snake. It's not what you're looking for with rainbows usually.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'd prefer a leucistic Colombian over a regular Colombian, because to me, regular Colombians are boring. They're just a brown, tan, patternless snake almost when they're full grown.
So in my mind, that's the draw to the Colombians, is you can get all those morphs.
Yeah.
I mean, the Colombians are pretty. I mean, they're not a Brazilian because they are just kind of that dirty brown, but they still have a pretty amazing iridescence. They're hardier. They handle warmer temperatures. They handle drier enclosures and things like that. But there are some really cool morphs out there. So like I have the leucistics, I have albinos, I have a paradigm, I have some ghost/anery, because they're not a true anery hypo making ghost. They were just termed ghosts.
That's another thing in snakes that drives me nuts. When you go from different species and people using the same term, but it's not the same combination. I just like I feel like we over here in this group, we settled on this, like ghost. We settled it for a lot of stuff. It is anery and hypo together. Don't name anything else ghost, but you'll see other things pop up where they'll name it that. And I'm like, you could have named it anything. You have anything you can go to. Don't go to something that exists.
Right.
They do it in ball pythons sometimes. I'll see.
Well, yeah, I was going to say there's ghost ball pythons,
yeah,
which I hate. Then you get the true ghost, which is the actual like axanthic and hypo together, but just call it ghost.
Yeah, I
make it simpler.
So, because I know with the Brazilians they have the albinos, which are nice, but again takes away my favorite part of Brazilians.
They are cool, and I think part of it's the wow factor. They're just they're still rare enough, and it took so long to get that first one to reproduce. So it was out there. There was pictures of it floating around, but now that there's people actually making babies, I think that's part of it. It's got a big wow factor with it. And truthfully, I mean, some of the hypos are really cool. I mean, you can get some, like, especially some of the high colored ones are really nice. And, the caramel albinos I prefer over the T-negative albino.
Yeah. Well, because you can still get some color, which shows the pattern really well.
True.
And then there's the line, like you look at, for people that are not into rainbow boas, Dave Calling is kind of like, to me, I guess, the epitome of what you want your rainbows to look like. He's been doing it forever. And he's got so many different line bred stuff where the patterns are crazy and the colors are crazy. And so
Lana. Words.
Oh, words. So there's a lot of line bred stuff if you get into Brazilian rainbows as well.
Yeah, so when I first got into them, there was no like high red at that point. Nobody was talking about that. It was high orange. And I don't know if it's because that's when I got into them and kind of what I was seeing, but that's certainly, I know I go against the grain a little bit, but I really like the orange over the dark red stuff.
That's good. I'm the opposite. I like the red. That was my male was red, and my female is far more orange. And he turned orange in the later years, but he was a very, very pretty deep red. through most of his life, and I love that. But that's one thing with rainbows is, well, and Corey, you'll get this because it's very similar with carpets. You have a baby born, and you don't really know what it's going to look like because with rainbow boas, they're born one color, and over the first several sheds, they kind of turn red or they kind of turn orange. So I know with carpets, you get a carpet, and then you have no clue what it's going to look like.
No idea what it's going to look like until a year later or longer.
So I had someone ask me, so do any of the babies look like the dad? I was like, I don't know. I'll get back to you in a couple months.
I saw that. Yeah.
And it's funny because there's some you might think, oh, this one's going to be a screamer, and then it kind of just mellows out. And there's ones that you're like, oh, this one will be all right, and it comes out to be the best looking one.
Yeah, that makes selling them a nightmare. Because I don't want to sell one and then someone send me a picture a year later and it looks freaking amazing. I'm like, oh great, the one I kept looks like shit. That's wonderful.
Oh, it'll happen.
I had people doing that with last year's carpets too.
So you've been keeping snakes for a long time, just and like you've been fairly under the radar because you keep you don't keep basic stuff. I mean, you keep the rainbows, and then I also got a super black Russian Sambo from you, which not a lot of people breed those. There's only a handful of people, and you were not on my list of people I knew keeping them until I got a picture on my phone, and I was like, "Ooh, I really want one of those." And then I was told someone else bought it.
Me.
And I was lied to.
It was me. We lied to you for a week, 2 weeks almost.
2 weeks.
Everybody knew but you.
Yeah.
Sean was in on it.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, y'all can all suck
John
it.
Grant was in on it. Yeah.
Y'all can still all suck it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess I would say I was more active at one point. It's different though, because in the interim that I kind of backed off a little bit, that's when Facebook really took off. And then honestly, it was weird. So let's see. I got those rainbows. And then after that, I had, I think I added Doomerals next. And that's the only thing I think I've ever gotten that I really don't keep anymore. I bred those. I think I had 4 litters out of 2 pairs, but I wasn't real successful with them. I would usually get about 50% slugs and stillborns. And I don't know if I was just doing something wrong or I just didn't feel like they were really a good snake for me.
They're also they're a tricky one to breed. One, their gestation period is just fucking forever.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought rainbows were bad.
I was young, and part of it is, maybe if I tried again, I mean, I don't want to pay today's prices.
I know.
But if I tried again, it might be different because I think I do have a little bit of different understanding about how to properly cycle the animals, where before it was just kind of like put them together and see what happens,
Yeah, that's why I like Colombian boas. You just put them together and see what happens, and you're good.
Yeah, yeah. So there were some shows that were out here. They were single day shows, but they were 4 times a year, and I was real consistent with those, all in Denver, and I was really enjoying that. And I was, I was at the same spot having a good time, and I was at that point active on the king snake forums, mostly the rainbow boa forum. There was a different camaraderie on that particular forum. I felt that I fit into better than with some of the other ones, maybe.
Yeah, I used to be on there a lot, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Did you say you were on the rainbow one?
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I was just Milo on there, like a shortened version of my last name.
And that seems
so you might have seen some of my pictures and stuff back then.
Well, that seems like it was forever ago.
It was, yeah.
The hobby is so different from those days. And what gets me with that is everybody's always like, I want to go back to the forum days. I'm like, yes and no. I mean, it was great, but Facebook does make it a lot easier just to go search for stuff.
It does, and it doesn't. I mean, the thing I did like about the forums is there was a definite thread to conversation.
Yes.
And it felt more like a conversation, where I feel like with Facebook, it's like, I got to get this out here now or it's going to disappear. It's going to be so far down. Nobody's going to see it. And I don't know. I guess I like the fact that with the forums, I could check it once every 2 or 3 days and I could catch up to where I was. And I didn't feel like, I don't know. It was just a different feeling for me. So I was, I really kind of backed off a little bit when we started having kids. So my wife and I have 3 boys now. And the year that my older 2 sons are only 16 months apart. So as you can imagine, having that second baby that close became a real challenge at home. And I think like that particular year, I had like 5 or 6 different species born, and like rainbows in particular, I had over 100, and I got so overwhelmed. And so I kind of just backed off, and I'd stopped doing the forums. I stopped doing the shows. I stopped breeding for the most part. I decided I was going to do like one thing, like this year I'll do rosy boas, and then next year I'll do ball pipe. And then so I was kind of backing off a little bit. And then that's when I decided, like, I want to kind of get back into this more. The boys are getting a little older, and that's when, like, everything was different. Like, I went to King Snake, and it's like, wow, nobody's posted on this form in a month. And I don't know, it's just really weird. And so that's part of why I'm not, I guess you say under the radar. That's part of why. I also work like 60, 70 hours a week, so it makes it real hard to stay on top of stuff for me in terms of responding to people and taking new pictures, because a lot of my time at home is spent either with the kids doing house stuff or just cleaning in the snake room, because obviously that's going to take precedence over taking new photos and things. Like I have babies from 2019 that I've never taken pictures of other than like the day they were born,
Wow.
So, and I mean, I've shown some of them from that litter. So I saved an entire litter of it's a long project I've been working on, but the outcome was I got a sharp strain albino sun-glow leopard.
Ooh, that's nice.
And so I've taken more pictures of the sharp albino leopard and the sharp sun-glow leopard from it. In fact, they were on the Reptile report at one point. That was pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. But like the rest of the babies, like I don't think I've ever taken a picture of the hypos, and they're looking awesome. And got a couple of leopards out of it that just hang out here with me.
So you talked about taking that kind of that break in between and coming back. So it was kind of a dramatic change for you in the hobby when you came back, I'm sure. Especially, so we talk about rainbows. I know that for the longest time, a rainbow boa was $125 everywhere. That was the price for like rainbow boas. And then now you look at rainbow boa prices, and they're selling for $500 and $600 on Morph Market. That's got to like blow your mind at some point that those things just jumped up that high, because it's not like it's a super difficult snake to breed.
It shocked me, to put it mildly. I went to the Pueblo show expecting I was going to price things what I used to price them at when I was making 80 to 100 babies a year. I'd sell some at the shows. Believe it or not, I was wholesaling the pet stores at that time for like $50 sometimes if I just needed to unload some. And so I was pretty blown away with the prices they're commanding. And I mean, truthfully, I think they should. I think that they got too low. They're a beautiful snake.
Oh, yeah.
I also feel that having a little bit higher price tag on it, hopefully will make people do that research up front a little bit more about how to take care of something that has, I'm not going to call them a hard snake at all, but they have different needs. And part of what burned me out was I'd sell them to people at these shows, and I would give them a care sheet, and I'd talk to them about the requirements. But a lot of these people would hear the boa in the name, and the next thing I know, I'd get a call, it's not doing well, and they got it on Aspen bedding at a hot spot of 95. And it's like, you're just cooking it. You're drying it out and cooking it.
Yep.
Well, you also hear people they'll say, hear boa, and they go, oh, it gets huge. I'm like, no. They go, how big does it get? I mean, it can get 6 feet. That's huge. I'm like, yeah, but it's not a 6 foot boa. Like
I saw that today on Facebook. Somebody was asking about, they wanted a snake that stayed under 6 foot.
Oh, the mic.
And somebody said rainbow boa, and someone else commented, boas are huge. Same thing, back and forth. No, they get 6 foot. And, yeah,
it's a small 6 foot.
Yeah, they're not. They're like a heavy 6 foot.
Yeah, I mean,
I got male like actual boas, like not talking rainbow boas, but I got males that'll breed at like 3.5 feet.
Oh yeah.
Like my leopard stuff in particular stays real small.
Well, and then keep all my males small because small males like to breed. Fat males are
That's true.
Sit in the corner and just stare at the female and wonder what the hell she wants.
Yep. Just give me another rat.
Yeah. So that's I'm good if my males can live in probably I know this is gonna upset people, but like a 70 size tub. That'll house my males pretty well. And I said tub, not cage. So I know some people are gonna have an aneurysm out there. They'll get over it. So you talked about Doomerals earlier. They were like $125. And now I also looked up one the other night because Travis Wyman sent me a female. And I was like, you know what? I need a male. And it's $800.
Isn't that unbelievable?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that people can get that kind of money and they're a great snake and that means that they're not getting, but I want one. And I don't have $800. So
you'll find somebody that wants to trade for rainbows. We said
that's what I need.
He already tried.
I need somebody willing to trade for a rainbow for a Doomerals.
But aren't Doomerals such a cool boa? You think about how far away from other boas they evolved, how far separated they are in time, and they look so similar.
And it's so because on Madagascar you have them, and then you have the Madagascan ground boa, which is very similar, and I can definitely see where someone who doesn't know the difference, and I have a hard time sometimes telling the difference. If you look at them side by side, they're very similar. And then you also have the Madagascan tree boa, so it's weird, that little island surrounded in python country. I mean, you got pythons in Africa, pythons in Indonesia, pythons in Australia, and one little island's like, you know what? Let's have boas. And then it's like, let's have boas with the best camouflage of any boa.
Yeah, by far.
I mean, you put those guys down in some leaf litter, and you cannot see a Dumerals. So,
yeah, it's almost like a gaboon viper, the way their patterning works in the leaf litter. It's pretty amazing.
That's what Robert said.
Exactly what I said today when he said those same words about the patterning. I said they're like a non-venomous gaboon viper. I
love them, and I had a bad experience 15, 16, 17, how many years ago it was. I had one that didn't eat and one that bit all the time, and I was like, screw it, I'll get rid of them. And then I was like, I'm gonna get more later, and then later came and they were $800. I was like, shit, I waited too long. But so
but I feel like that's a lot of snakes in general right now.
Yes,
the market is up a lot for a lot of things.
I've said that what happened was everybody got into ball pythons, and then a lot of folks went, well, these are fucking boring. No offense to people that breed ball pythons, of course, but they got tired of it. A lot of people have gotten tired of ball pythons, and they want to go to something else. And now they're seeing all these species that other people like myself and like you that we've had for decades, but now they're seeing them as new, and they go, I want that. And so that drove the price up, which is great. And it's like, look, I'm not going to lie. I'm super happy that I'm not going to be selling these rainbow boas for $125. But
there's female Dumerals for $675.
That's still a lot. Man, that's so much money. That's the other problem is it's got to be a pretty Dumerals. I'm very picky because as much as I love Dumerals boas, there are some that are not as pretty. And the pinks that you can get on some of those Dumeral boas are amazing.
Yeah, this one that's got a lot of pinks is $1,700.
Fuck that.
Wow.
And it's worth the wait because that'll translate into the babies you make down the line.
100%. And so that's why I don't want to, because the one that Travis.
That's actually for a pair.
That's not bad for a pair.
Yeah, it's a pair of 2-year-olds.
Because the one Travis sent me is beautiful. And so I don't want to waste it on buying a cheap male and going, look, I made Dumerals, but they look like crap. Because that's another thing where people get, especially with some of these snakes that have the higher prices, so like rainbow boas. It's very easy to get a not pretty rainbow. I don't want to say ugly because I love them, but there are some ugly ass rainbow boas out there. I've seen them. But people will get them and breed them and go, all right, I can charge $500. Well, you can charge it all you want, but it's not a $500 snake. I'm like,
yep,
it's got to at least look good. So that's with the Russian sand boas. So everyone sees that picture of a black Russian sand boa and they go, I want a Russian sand boa. And you're like, that's not exactly what a Russian sand boa looks like.
Not at all. There's
here's a question.
A lot of brown on them.
Yeah. What's your question, Corey?
No, so here's a question. How much is too much to spend on a snake, James and Robert? From the comments.
That is different for every person. But the person that just moved to Texas and hasn't really received a paycheck from their new job yet, more than $10 right now is too much for me to spend on a snake. So, but I see people spending way too much on snakes all the time, though, especially with those checks that came in this past year. You talk to some of the bigger breeders, and they had lots of $1,400 snake sales.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they spent every dime of that check on a snake. And I'm like, you could have paid a bill. You could have paid off a credit card.
Yep.
You could have done some shit with that.
But I appreciate you for buying rack.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have an answer to that because as long as I have the money, if I think the snake's worth it, if I had the money to buy a Bolin's python, I would.
Well, see, that's the thing. You got to have the money,
right?
And it's got to be worth it to you.
Correct.
But you see people all the time spending money that they don't have, and then in a year, like, I got to sell my entire collection. Well, you wouldn't have to sell your entire collection had you bought a few and then paid off some bills. And now,
honestly, that kind of stuff hurts all of us. because now somebody goes, well, I saw this listed for that price, and other people start dropping their price to the guy that was just trying to dump stuff. And it's a weird market because I don't think a lot of people have business sense or really think about the value or the worth of the animal.
It's very true.
You need to get rid of stuff, you know?
It's a very weird market because we're putting an imaginary number on an animal. Like all the prices are bad. So Katie always gets mad at me because we didn't buy her a Mexican black king snake when it was $40 for forever. And now they're like $200. So in my brain, though, I go, well, I can't spend $200 on a Mexican black king snake. They were $40, but I'll go spend like $600 on a sand boa.
Yeah, and they'll never be $40 again.
And
ever. So
the market it's a weird market that we're in when it comes to that kind of stuff. So how much are you willing to spend? Yeah. All right, Corey doesn't count. You can't ask Corey how much she's willing to spend on snakes. I can tell you it's not $10,000.
It is not $10,000. It is short of $10,000.
It is short of a Boland's python.
It is short of a Boland's, and it was not $8,000 either. So it is shy of those numbers.
I will tell you what Corey is willing to spend on a snake and what James is willing to spend on the snake are not in the same neighborhood.
Your threshold is lower, huh?
Yeah, that's again, that comes down to if you can afford it, and how much you want it.
Jason, what you don't know is that we were at a show and James comes over and he's like, "Man, Jim over there at Split Rock's got some blackheads, and I don't think anybody at a show will buy those."
I didn't say anybody wouldn't buy them. I said I couldn't. I said they're amazing.
And then next thing you know, Corey's like, "I got blackhead."
I joked with Corey and I said, "Hey, Corey, you should go get that blackhead." And then like 30 minutes later, she walks by my.
She goes, "Oh, there's blackheads here."
She walks by my table 30 minutes later and she's like, "I got it." And I was like, "Of course you fucking did."
Like you snooze, you lose, right?
I mean, I couldn't afford them. They were amazing.
Yeah, Jim puts everything. Jim puts.
They're incredible.
I've got
he had all the ultra males.
Oh, his ultra male.
I mean, I know Robbie. I don't know if Robbie's still in the chat. Robbie bought
a pair of hets from him.
And then Jack and Heidi bought, I think, all the rest.
Everything.
Yeah,
all visuals he had. They bought all the visuals.
Yeah.
I have my speckled king snake is from him, and that speckled king snake's the prettiest one I've ever
seen. It is gorgeous.
It's got solid yellow belly, nose. It's all. But that's a case of someone went and they got the right animal, and they took the time to breed the right animal to get what they wanted.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think for me, one of the things that's always held me back with the real high dollar stuff is, I mean, anybody who's kept snakes for a long time knows that sometimes you just lose something. Everything can be perfect, and you just have a snake up and die.
Yep.
For no discernible reason, and a real high price tag, that's like a shot to the heart,
Right. Well, I always tell, I grew up on a farm. So I always tell people it's like farming. When I was on a farm, we would buy very expensive cattle, sometimes show cattle and stuff. And something happens, they fall and break a leg or they just die, and you never know. So you're making that investment into something that literally, like you said, could just die tomorrow, and you're just out. So people, I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration.
I think that's really valid. And that's one of the few things that puts brakes on for me is realizing this is a living thing and living things can die.
Yeah.
And so you've got to take that into account when you're making purchases. So
the most I've ever spent, I spent $4,500 on a pair of ball pythons, which
did that hurt?
So it was a payment plan. And, but thinking about that now, like, man, we've had them for 6-7 months, whatever it is. And if they die, that's, I think the female was 30 for 3,000 and the male was 1,500 or vice versa. Because the male's the visual. I don't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, you just pay for them.
Yeah.
It's not your job to keep it with what they are.
So, man, if those die, that's,
And I know someone listening right now is going, well, they just see them as price tags, and it's 100% not true. But at some point, it is I don't say it's a business because it's not a business for me. I do it for fun, but I expect somewhat of a return. Not only because I'm like I want to make tons of money. If I want to make tons of money, I would not be doing sand boas, but I want to be able to pay for my frozen rodents next year. I want to be able to buy a new snake. I want to be able to, there's things I want to be able to do, and also like. My male rainbow boa died. He cost me $125 almost 20 years ago. Okay. That obviously was not a lot of money. there's a lot of emotional attachment to these animals as well.
Absolutely.
Some of them just
So
have
you have a
emotional
history there. I mean, that's big.
and some of these just have emotional attachment and a large dollar sign attached to them. That's just how it is as well. I know for Corey, it's a wound, but I know losing that snake was a huge deal to you, and that really hurt.
Huge deal. I was,
and that's not a dollar sign issue. I know, and a lot of that for people when an animal dies, they take it very hard on themselves. What did I do wrong?
Yes,
and unfortunately, I guess how you look at it, it's not always your fault. I mean, a lot of these things we don't know why they die because we don't take them with the vet and we don't get them checked afterwards and get a necropsy. But things like cancer happen, things like heart failure. I mean, all these things that can happen in a person can happen in the snake. It happens to them too. You know, it could have a stroke. I mean, any of that stuff, and you have no control over that. Now, if it dies because you didn't give it the proper temperature or because you kept it on horrible bedding and it got dried out or whatever, that's obviously your fault. Mm-hmm. But sometimes shit just dies, and it's a hard part of this.
Well, so for me, obviously, it is a business.
Yeah.
Also, I keep snakes because I love them. But, you know, because my entire business revolves around reptiles, every hole in that rack needs to make a certain amount of money a year.
Yeah.
In order for it to be worth being there. It has to at least recoup the cost that it makes. Now, that's not realistic in your grow out racks because you're 3 to 4 years before that makes anything back. And I've had a couple of snakes die that were like a couple of my favorites that you know we handled a lot, and then of course you have some that are just assholes no matter what. And but even if they die, you know, I had a female die after she laid eggs. She laid eggs and never would start eating again. You know, we tried. I've talked about it on the podcast a couple of times. We tried everything you could think of to get her to eat, and she just would not eat. And you know, she was a cheap snake. She was one of the first ones we bought. I think I paid $40 for her. But man, it was terrible. I was out of town. Rachel called me and told me that she had died, and it was like losing any one of our pets. It sucked.
Yeah.
But I hate when people are afraid to talk about it like it's a business.
I agree.
It can be something that is your passion and you love and enjoy. And it can also be something that, you know, you want to make some money at. Like these two things don't necessarily have to be
mutually exclusive.
Right.
Yeah, well, right. Yeah. We always tell people, find the thing that's your passion and turn it into your living, and you never go to work a day in your life.
Yeah.
So why are people scared to talk about their reptiles like it's a business?
Yeah.
It happens a lot with animals. I guess we see it a lot in the reptile business. I don't know if I'm sure it happens in others, but it does happen a lot. Someone starts to make a lot of money off reptiles and they go, well, they're just in it for the money. Well, no. Now, don't get me wrong. We have all seen people that have gotten into this hobby that was purely because they walked into a reptile show and saw a ball python selling for $15,000 and said, I'm going to go make money. Okay. And they were not a snake person. They just wanted to go make money. Those people don't tend to last long enough because they don't want to clean shit. They don't want to have to thaw out rats or feed. They don't want to do the stuff that takes to take care of animals. But a lot of the people that are successful are reptile people who also want to make money off the reptiles.
Right.
Well, and that's the key. I mean, like Robert was saying, you know, he does this. I mean, his business involves reptile stuff. But if he didn't love reptiles, he'd be going to a job he hates every day.
Yep.
And you're not. I mean, that's not sustainable.
No.
You know?
No, I did it for 20-something years.
It's not. I mean, you work with live animals. I mean, you talk about growing up on a farm, and I'm sure your family loved the animals that they worked with. It's part of their livelihood, but they wouldn't have got up. I mean, I know farmers get up at the crack of dawn. They're not doing that if they don't enjoy it.
Absolutely. We would always have, at any given time, we would have 2 steers in a feed out lot, like, you know, about an acre. And we would also have a couple of pigs in a feed out area. But one of those steers was named Hamburger and one of those pigs was named Pork Chop. And because that was what they were for. That's what we raised them from the minute they were born, knowing that when they got to the right size, they were going in the freezer.
But with that doesn't mean you treat them any less than you would 100%. A pet level. Like
that's like when people. So one of my biggest pet peeves is in a couple of the feeder breeder groups. People are like, "Oh, just thump the rat on the head," or throw it in with dry ice to euthanize it. And I'm like, or who cares if the rat's, gets hurt? It's just a feeder. And I'm like, it's still a living, breathing animal. I treat my feeders the same way I treat my snakes.
I can't say anything. I've thumped a lot of mice on the head.
I just,
but I do
have
that.
I done it? Yes.
But I do that with the full understanding that to me, it's the fastest way to kill it. I don't do it. There's a lot of people that I feel when you watch a lot of these videos, and I don't think they're as much as now, but you used to see a lot of feeding videos. And a lot of those feeding videos definitely came off very much of, I enjoy watching this mouse or rat get killed.
Right.
And that is not what I enjoy, or else I would feed a bunch of live stuff. And I'm saying about it feeds live is doing that, but there are people that...
I mean, I feed live.
Yeah, but you're not doing it for joy.
Dude, I hate, I drop the rat in and close the tub.
Yeah.
And listen for the thump and go, okay. There's been times that I've had to, leave the tub open for some reason, and the little rat's wrapped up in the snake, and it's just staring at me, and I'm like, I can't fucking do this. When I was in my 20s, I'd have been like, oh, look, the rat's eyes are bulging out. But now I think I'm getting soft as I get older.
Oh, I said it before. I used to get rabbits for free from a friend, and I fed them to my bigger boas, and they normally bring me 2 rabbits at a time. And I what I did is I was never good at the dislocating the neck thing.
Mm-hmm.
I tried it once. I heard the lunch crunching, and then the rabbit screamed and cried, and I was like, I can't do this shit. So I always kept
that is the worst noise.
Oh my God, it's fucking horrible. But so I kept a big stick, and I would hit it right behind the head, and it was done.
Mm-hmm.
It was dead immediately. Well, they brought me 8 rabbits one time, and I got through 4 of them, and I'm like, I'm fucking done.
My limit.
The other 4 are staring at me. I'm like, I found out that 4 is the number I can get to before I feel like a monster.
So growing up, I raised rabbits for show. So you would show 2 pins of 3, but I would produce 150 to 200.
Yeah, and they're meat rabbits. Those are
to get those 6 really good rabbits to show. Well, the rest of them get butchered. And I had no problem when I was young. You hold them up by the back feet. You basically karate chop them in the back of the head. And then you butcher them from there on out. And I don't think at 41 years old that I could hit a rabbit in the head with my bare hand and butcher it like I did at 17.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's rough. Well, we had someone ask, how do you guys go about euthanizing snakes? How should I? I'm sure I should go the expensive way and have the doctor give it a shot. But that I don't. I've done the put it in the freezer, and then it can be as horrible as you want. But I put it in the freezer, and it goes to sleep, however you want to say it, but it dies. So I don't know how y'all do it.
I usually do. I do blunt force trauma to the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the best way, because
there's some snakes that I can't do that to.
It sucks. I hate it every time, but
I had a hog island that I'd had forever, and then I talked before, I lost all my boas. I got sick, and this is the one that made it through. And then finally, it was just look, it wasn't doing so well, and I had to put it down. But I knew in my head that's the fastest thing, that I could just take it outside, and I could have chopped the head off, and it would have been dead in no time. But I can't physically bring myself to do it, was the problem. So I could put it in the pillowcase and put it in the freezer and walk away. And that's what I did.
I can't even do that with pinky mice. Like they tell you with pinky mice that you can put them in the freezer. I did it. Yeah. I got a bunch of pinkies from Otis at the end of a show a while back, and I brought it home and I put them in a bag.
You feel like a monster.
And it was 200 of them. And I'm like, I don't know if I sleep tonight. I put them in the freezer, and I'm like, but it was maybe a minute later I checked and they were already dead. So it was quick.
So there's a question about, will CO2 work in a snake? And no, it won't. It theoretically could have it die eventually, but the problem is their respiratory rate is so much slower than a mammal's, and that thing is going to suffer, and it's going to be a long, prolonged, awful death. So I would not recommend that.
Yeah.
Are you talking about for gassing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone asked if CO2 would work for a snake.
Yeah, it's definitely not like the rodents.
No.
I tried that one time, and I honestly think the freezer method's better if you have to do it, because I felt like I was torturing it when I realized that it was still attempting to breathe in there.
So I can just imagine it writhing around trying to breathe.
I have a failure to thrive normal ball python right now that we had a bunch of babies born right before the freeze, and we had them on their second meals, and then with the freeze, we had to move all of our animals. Everybody's heard this, and it just threw everything off. We're 5 months later, and we're still struggling to get some of these to eat regularly. Like I've got babies that are 7 months old that we're not selling because
That were eating before the freeze.
they were eating before the freeze.
Wow.
That we're still, well, this one just would not. Well, last week Rachel came down all excited. She said it ate. I'm like, okay, I think that meal's probably going to kill that snake. It's what my thought, because it's so small. Well, I checked yesterday, or Brittany actually, my daughter's girlfriend was watering them yesterday, and she said it regurged.
Oh,
So
man.
I'm going to have to euthanize it and feed it to a king snake tomorrow. Rachel wanted, I fed all the colubrids yesterday, and then she's like, well, why don't you go ahead and take care of that that snake and feed it to one of the king snakes? And I'm like, fuck, I literally just finished feeding them. So let's give it, great thing about a colubrid.
I was about to say they'll be ready to eat
later,
again in a couple days.
So I'll feed it off tomorrow. But same thing, I'll more than likely take it outside.
But you have for rats, you have a gas chamber, an actual CO2 canister, and you fill it with gas and all that stuff.
Yeah, with a
regulator.
flow meter, regulator and everything.
See,
the freaking regulator's $50. I don't understand why people don't.
When I got my rainbow boa back in 2003, and it was just one snake, and we ended up building a euthanizing chamber, but it was baking soda and vinegar.
Yeah.
So you take two Rubbermaid tubs, Rubbermaid containers, connect them with PVC pipe in the middle, and the bottom one you put baking soda and vinegar in, and it pushes up all the CO2 and pushes the oxygen out of the top one, and it ends up killing it. So it's a science experiment while also killing. Now,
but the problem is you don't know how much CO2 you're giving them.
And you can't control the flow rate.
No, you can't control the flow rate. So they go from breathing 1 second to gasping for breath the next.
Yes, I know. I watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which at the time, again, I was younger.
Right.
I was fine with that. I wasn't fine. I'm not trying to torture it, but I was fine with, okay, it's dying. We're good. But yeah, now it'd be like, man, that'd be rough to watch.
Yeah.
I'd have to just leave the room.
Even now, I put them in the tub. I turn the gas on. I make sure the flow's good, and I go back inside.
Yeah.
It's in the garage. And I come back out 5 minutes later, 5 to 10 minutes later, take them out, and then go feed them off. Because for some
I do them in a bucket so I don't have to see them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to switch to
a good way to do it.
I'm going to switch to a black tub.
Yeah.
A black tote.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep ordering my frozen and let somebody else deal with it.
So this is the first time I've ever ordered frozen rodents.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I've always just frozen my own. But we've got so many colubrids now.
Yep.
That James needed to order rodents. So I said, well, shit, let's order them together and save on the shipping. So, because I was like, I just need like 100 of this and 50 of this. And I was like, it took up like 17% of the box. So shipping was the same no matter what. So James filled the box the rest of the way up. And
rats will do that.
Yeah. You know what? We never did get to play with the dry ice.
No, that was
Rachel unpacked them and we were going to go play with it that night and we didn't do it.
I always love putting it in the sink and then filling the
with
sink
the
with
ice.
water.
I make dry ice bombs with the kids.
Yep.
Oh, how fun.
So we did that once in college and we threw it outside and it wasn't blowing off. And all of a sudden we saw a cop car like going right past where it was.
Oh.
Well, luckily the cop got past it because like 30 seconds later it did explode. But we were inside. We had the door shut and we heard a giant boom. We're like, we're not going out there.
Nope.
Stay in here.
Run out and go, what's going on?
But
yeah.
All right, so let's get away from the death talk.
Yep, fun talk
now. So, Jason, what Samboas do you keep?
So primarily just the Russians. I do have a couple of other ones, but I haven't ever attempted to breed them or anything yet. I have some like striped snow and albino stuff. But really just the Russians. I guess I got those. Trying to remember, in 2006, I believe, is when I added some of those. I got 2 pairs. And it's kind of funny because there was a lot of talk about how hard and difficult they were to breed at that time. And I didn't really understand or I guess really know any of that. I didn't know anything about Samboas in general. And I kept them with my Rosies and I treated them like my Rosie boas. And so those, I cooled them with my Rosies. I kept them, I think I bumped their temperatures up a little bit just because I knew they're from a warmer summertime area. And I had my first attempt at breeding. I got 2 litters out of the 2 pairs. I was really pretty stoked about it, but I didn't realize till afterwards that they're supposed to be a lot more difficult. I know a lot of people put them in the freezer like they do with, sorry, not free. We were talking about freezers
the
earlier.
Cooler.
In the refrigerator, like they do with rubber boas.
Yep.
Now I will put, so the Black Russians, a lot of times the babies won't eat right off the bat. and I do brewmate those with my baby rubber boas.
So,
but I really feel that I don't need to get my adults quite that cold.
Jason, it sounds like your collection is my collection. Keep naming things I have. Well, the Black Russians, I think most people's problem with the Black Russians was when they started keeping them, they kept them like Kenyans, because for most of the year, you can keep it like a Kenyan. But the problem is where it comes from, they get cold, which is just unnatural for someone who has kept a snake at 95 degrees throughout the year.
Yep.
Which I've talked about here before with the rubber boas. Putting rubber boas inside of a fridge is the scariest thing I've ever done with any of my snakes in my entire life.
So was this your first year doing it last year?
Yes, it was horrifying. The entire time I was afraid they were going to freeze it. But every time I go in there, they're just cruising around like they don't give a shit. Like there's
so the
ice.
First year I had a hard time. I guess I bought an adult pair, and I did okay with those. But I was thinking like, oh, the babies aren't going to be as tolerant. So I got my first litter of those in 2003, and so I put them in my beer fridge. And I cranked it down to, I want to say it was like mid 40s or something to start. And they actually pushed the lid of the tub off and got out. And I found all of, there was 4 of them. I found them all, but they were like loose in my living room. And so that's when I realized you got to get those pretty cold to get them to stop moving. And it doesn't seem, it's got Boa in the name. So it's like, this should not be right, you know, but they do better if you get them that cold.
James was a nervous wreck. If you keep them up
too hot, they're going to lose weight over the winter, and then they're going to really struggle in the spring.
Well, I've got to get Robert to help me build a rack just for my rubber boas, because right now they're taking up an entire baby rack that I can't use for anything else. And we'll talk about it later, because we got a question that you asked, and we'll talk about it. But they're the only thing in my collection that pretty much doesn't get heat. They're in a rack set at like 80, and I have nothing else in that rack because everything else I like to give a little more heat to. But
it's okay, Katie. You weren't the only one.
Oh, yeah. Katie
kept messaging me. I have snakes in a cooler
covered in a block of ice. And they're just like, yeah, it's cool. That's literally. Like, I'm horrified with the Russian Sambo that I have. And at some point I'm going to get a female, and at some point I'm going to breed them, and I'm going to have to put a not cheap snake inside of a refrigerator. And that just sounds stupid. None of that sounds right.
Sounds like you're going to kill it. Yeah.
Because especially and it's so much, like I said, it's so much weirder with the Russian Sambos, because I'm going to keep that thing at 90, 95 degrees hot spot for most of the year. And then at some point I'm going to go, hey, here's 40 degrees. Enjoy this.
Yeah. Because they need those extremes though. And it's interesting because I know a lot of people like colubrids, for example, a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to breed. I'm not going to cool it. Right. I know people say that with rosy boas, but I really think that we're hurting the longevity of the snake by not giving it what it experiences and needs in the wild. I mean, they've spent a lot of time gearing up and adapting to what it needs, and I think we should be doing it.
I've never brewmated my rosy boas. I've got a pair of Mexican rosy boas, and I've never done it, which may be the reason she only ever gives me like 2 babies at a time and one only ever survives. I think I need to brew. Now I know I'm not going to put them in a cooler and get them down to like 40 degrees like a rubber boa, but I may go ahead and take them, put them in a tub, and put them off in a closet somewhere off heat for 2 months and try that with them and see if I get a better rate of survival out of the babies than I have. But it's very unnatural to do that when you have, when I have rainbow boas and I have boa constrictors and I have sand boas and you're always so paranoid about, all right, we got to have a hot spot. But then again, you have colubrid guys who put them in a closet and never put heat on them, and corn snakes thrive in that stuff. So it's
and a lot of these guys that keep rosies in California, they'll put them like out in the garage for the wintertime, and because they are getting those natural, mid 50s, low, to low 60 type of swings that they need. A few years ago, I don't know when this was, probably 7-8 years ago, I took a pair. I've got quite a few rosies, and I took a pair from 2 different litters, but I had siblings, right? So I had like 2 males and I saved 2 females, and I cooled one of those pairs, and I never cooled the other ones. I just fed them all winter long until they were ready to breed. So one I cycled and one I didn't, and I actually got viable offspring from both of them. And I thought I was really onto something. And I was, I remember telling people like, see, you don't need to cool rosy boas. You can breed them without cooling them and they do just fine. What was really interesting to me though, is that female that had been cooled her whole life, she was ready to breed again the next season, and that female that had stayed up her whole life and been fed over the winter, she was way too skinny. And I think that there's something about them that when they have that cool down and that fasting period, their body starts converting a lot of those fat reserves into muscle. And like we know with the big boas, if you breed a big fat female, you'll get a good litter, but it's going to take 3 years to get another litter out of her because she doesn't have that muscle tone.
Yeah.
I think the same thing's happening when we cool these snakes. I think they need that break. They need that fast.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that and see how it does. I don't know why I've just never thought to do it, but it makes sense. So we asked a question, and I talked to you about asking this question. What now? I got to use my computer for the first time in like an hour, and something pops up on it. What? I don't even know what this is. It was. I can't even read. Oh, there it is. How do you handle having multiple species of reptiles from different climates all in the same room? And so we had a couple answers here, and I know you struggle with that because we talked about it. I mean, you've got a large variety of reptiles that definitely have different needs. So let's look at a couple of these. Angel Villalobos said, as a general rule, I try to keep species that have similar temperatures. The room is 78 degrees, which, by the way, I couldn't work in a room that was 78 degrees. I would hate it. But I never could do ambient temperature because I'm fat and I sweat. And if I'm miserable in my snake room, I know I'll never clean anything. But
that's why I'm shirtless getting bit by rainbow boas.
But you said I keep short tails with a hot spot of 84, and cool is the ambient temperature. The king snakes have a hot spot of 88, and the cool is ambient. The geckos are ambient except for tokays and leos, who have their own hot spots. So she wouldn't keep anything that can't thrive at the ambient temps in the room. Mandarin rat snakes are out of the question for her. I get that. That's not, well, I'll go into how I keep mine in a second. Let me read through a couple of these. Lavissa, who we've talked about a lot. She says each tank is climate controlled versus the room being climate controlled, which is how I do it. She has a very small collection. It's much easier. Her leprechaun thrives in the humidity in her home. Now that's another big issue because for you, Jason, humidity in your home is 100% different than humidity in our homes down here. Because you actually have like a winter. I don't know what those are. Well, I have to take that back. This year we had a winter, and I'd like to forget that it ever happened. That winter didn't happen. But I know that you have struggled with humidity issues there just because y'all have to use your heaters for a large chunk of the year. But I was looking through the Lavissa's. So she's got heat on everything. Victor says he keeps colubrids and ball pythons in one rack system, which I've got ball pythons and corn snakes in the same rack, and they're all, I think, a hot spot of like 86 or 88. And anything's 86 on that rack, and they do fine. But corn snakes are pretty bulletproof also. Once you get an adult corn snake, they can pretty much survive whatever. But what struggles do you have, Jason, with keeping such a wide variety of things with different climates where they naturally come from?
So the reason I was really curious to see other people's answers on this one in particular was it's a newer problem for me. When we moved into this house, we didn't have any kids, and so I had an unfinished basement that I had plans to finish, and then instead I kind of grew my reptile collection, and so it was really easy for me to keep stuff separated. So I had all my larger boas on one side, with the rainbow boas in the same room, but kind of on the bottom of all those stacks of cages and racks, and I had my drier animals kind of on the other side of the basement, and just everything was isolated a little bit. That just worked really well for me. And then a couple of years ago, I needed, when we it took me a long time, but when we started when we had our third child, I realized I need to finish the basement now, get some extra bedrooms, because I had all three boys in the same room for a while. So I finished the basement, which made me need to condense the space, I guess, I was keeping for my reptiles. And so now I do have all that, everything from, the rubber boas, the rosy boas, the sand boas, all the way up to the high humidity of the rainbow boas are all in the same room. And so it has been challenging, and I think it has affected me a little bit these last years as I kind of get things settled and try to figure out how to make it work. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in a very dry climate, so I'm actually running 2 humidifiers in there. And what I did when I finished this basement, I made this an actual bedroom in case we ever sell the house. It needs to look like a bedroom. So it has a walk-in closet. So that closet is what became my rosy room, so to speak. So it's got the sand boas and all the rosy boas. And then in the summertime, the rubber boas are in it. And I move them, of course, in the wintertime out of there. And in the fall, put them like down in the living room. But I actually I ran some duct work into that closet with an inline fan so I can pump cold air from the garage into that particular closet and then completely seal off the door during the winter so I can get that room. My goal was about 55 and I can get it pretty easily in the winter to about 60. But I think if I run that duct, I can get it lower. But one of the things that I didn't expect is by having all this stuff together and everything in the summertime when I do have, because the cages, everything has its own hotspot still. I don't really do just ambient. And my ambient temperature gets considerably higher than I was expecting. When I did this room, my original intention was to put in a tiled floor with a heating element in the tile. And I'm glad I didn't do it because it gets awfully warm in there, as it is. And so I had another fan. So when I designed the room, I had run these ductworks, like I mentioned, from the garage. And I ran one from the main room that goes out of the house. And from the outside, it just looks like a dryer vent. But I had another fan that's pushing the hot air out. And then that burned out recently. So I actually put in a better one that's made for like grow tents. So it's a higher CFM and it's got the carbon filter. So you weren't really.
Well, you are in Colorado, so you definitely have stuff for grow tents.
What's that?
I said you are in Colorado. You definitely have stuff for grow tents.
I bought it all on Amazon. I don't go anywhere. So you guys are going to laugh at this, but I've never been into a dispensary.
I would go just to look. I'm a teacher, so I could not, and I have not.
Yeah, I've never been in one either.
Well, it's because you're in Texas. Oh, even when you went to Colorado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming to Texas. I mean, it's funny because my sisters have come. Both of them have come from Texas and gone just to say they've been in one. I just didn't happen to be with them. And, it's more the novelty because you're in Colorado, you got to check it out, I guess. But so anyway, that's kind of what I've been doing to try to mitigate some of these issues. And I think part of it is still, it's just going to be a learning curve till I kind of figure out where everything needs to be. But, the heat of the summer, that room is probably during the day getting to about 82, which is a little hotter than I want the ambient to be. So that's why I'm trying this new fan and stuff to see if that helps cool it down. My other thought was, because I am running the 2 humidifiers, I could get one of those single air conditioner units that runs off water.
Yeah.
And that would help the humidity, but also kind of maybe lower the daytime temperatures a little bit.
Oh, so that closet is going to confuse the hell out of somebody whenever they do buy your house. They're going their closet. They're going to try to figure out why the hell ductwork was ran into a closet. So that's going to be interesting.
So here's the thing. It's completely hidden. If I want it to be, you'd never know it was there.
Oh, nice.
The inline fan that pumps the air from the garage, that's hidden in the stairs. And so you really can't even see it. There's I made a cover on the one side. So I guess if you look on the side, you'll see the cover that I put a screen just because my fear was, could you imagine mice getting in that ductwork from the garage, getting chopped up by the fan and then pumping that smell down into the snake room?
Oh God, that'd be horrible.
And I guess that's part of my other problem. I didn't mention that, but I also had to move my rat racks into the snake. So my snake room and rats are all together right now.
Oh damn, that sucks.
And I know a lot of people say that, you can't do that because you'll end up getting these super aggressive snakes. And it's not been a problem at all for me. And I, even going back to when I was in high school and living, in my family's house, I had all my snakes and I was breeding mice at that time in my bedroom. Back then I was doing it in 10-gallon tanks and stuff, but I've never seen an issue with snakes being more aggressive because they can smell them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a huge issue. I mean, look, a lot of us keep corn snakes in the same room as king snakes in the same room as corn snakes, and our king snakes aren't overly aggressive.
Yeah.
And obviously they can smell food.
Well, that's a good point. Yeah.
So that I don't think, especially if they're well fed. I think a cage aggressive snake is a snake that, one, never gets handled, and two, is probably hungry. Those two things will cause it an aggressive snake. Now, don't get me wrong, baby rainbow boas are just aggressive in general. That's just how they are. They like to bite. But I keep my room I keep the air vents open. Our house stays like 68 degrees because, again, fat and I sweat. So our house stays at 68 degrees. I keep the vents open. But naturally, because every cage and every rack has its own heat source, the room itself does stay a little warmer. But I usually deal with humidity issues and stuff like that with bedding. That's where I fix that. Like if I've got something that's a higher humidity animal, it's on Reptile Chip. That way I can add moisture to it and we're good. If I've got something like sand boas, which I don't need all that humidity, they're on Aspen because it's easy to keep that dry and clean it. And then I just control the temperature. You know, I've got racks full of just sand boas, or I've got a rack of ball pythons and corn snakes, which can be kept together pretty well. But I could definitely see where some people have issues. We don't suffer from humidity issues. I've never had to add humidity to the room itself because, again, I've lived in the South and we've got plenty of humidity to hand out, so we're good. But I could see where living somewhere like Colorado or even Arizona and Mexico, that would definitely become an issue. Corey, do you have any issues with
it? So my issue is with my adult carpets. I have to temperature cycle them, and I have to drop temps on them significantly lower than I want my ball python stuff to get. And so I keep them in separate rooms. That's how I do it.
So you're dropping. Well, I guess you have to drop ambient temperature the whole thing. So
yeah, that's the thing is I have to get night temps to usually I take them down to like 67 or so. That's about the lowest they get in the winter, and I just can't take my main snake room down that low. So.
How are you controlling that? You have a window unit, or what are you doing?
No, I just have a room in the house that is a little bit draftier than some of the rooms, and that's just as long as I don't keep the heat pumping too much in the winter, that's about where it'll get down to. So it works out. I'm a lot more nervous about my Brettles pythons next year and getting them cool enough.
See, that falls into those fall into the same category. That's the same category as the black Russian Samboas,
Not quite, they don't need to get quite that cold.
No, but you're keeping a hot spot of what, 88, 90 degrees during the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't even usually go quite that high, but for them. But yeah, like 80, 85, 86 usually for them. But then, I'll drop them quite a bit more in the winter.
You get into what, the 50s or low 60s?
Yeah, I'll probably get into the high 50s if I can, but I don't think I can consistently do it in Texas. Like I don't think we have enough days strung together where I can keep a window open and it's going to get that cold every night.
Yeah, you'd have to buy a big cooler, like fridge type thing to do that.
I haven't quite figured it out yet.
That's what people told me. It's like, just put your Brettles outside in a box during the winter. I'm like, that's great, except for when that winter day is 95 degrees.
Yeah.
That night may have been 30. And
I'm just going to have to hope that Australia occasionally has a hot winter day too, and they figure it out somehow. So I don't know.
Corey, do you give them daytime heat when they get? Is that just nighttime temperature? Or they drop in that cold all the time?
No, that's just nighttime. So they come up to normal daytime temperatures in the winter. So so it's not quite a brumation.
I've never kept carpet python, so I wasn't sure because with the rosies and the rubber boas and stuff, that's an all the time cold thing. But
yeah,
I do floor covering for a living, and I have my whole life. So I guess I always figured carpet pythons would be like bringing my work home with me.
Yeah, but then I'm brumating my hog nose for the first time this winter too, so that'll be a whole new thing as well. I didn't.
Now are those going to get daytime heat?
No, those won't. Those will go in a wine fridge or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with my larger boas and the rainbows, I do a similar thing where I turn off their heat. It's not getting that cold, but I do turn off their heat completely at night. And so they are getting more of a wintertime cycle, but I am bringing them back up to about normal temperatures during the day. So
that makes sense.
So when do you start your cycle there, Jason?
When do I start it?
Yeah.
I usually start it in like November. A friend of mine years ago taught me with the rosies in particular, like, you put them down on Thanksgiving and you wake them up on Valentine's, and then you breed them starting on April Fool's, like an easy way to remember.
Gotcha.
One thing that is kind of interesting is our seasons seem to be shifting here in Colorado, and it is pushing the reptiles are feeling that definitely. Cause even if I put, say, the rosy boas together on April Fool's Day, like I always have, a lot of times they won't even start breeding for a month. And believe it or not, I actually had Rosie Boas born at the tail end of November the year before last. I think I did
Oh,
like
wow.
10 litters that year, and all of them were super late like that. And I think part of it is our summers are staying hot, like all the way into October and November. We're having really hot days, and then we're having really cool springs. Like not last year, but the year before, the kids' last day of school, we had a blizzard in May, and so it's like my entire collection is kind of shifting because I think that they're feeling that.
Oh, that's interesting.
You wouldn't think, being inside, and I know that like with the closet, and of course, is getting air ducked in from outside, but you wouldn't think being inside they'd feel that, but they certainly seem to. I mean, I've talked to other people in different parts of the country that, they have an overly hot winter and it completely affects their breeding. And, we have a lot more control in a snake room than, of course, these animals do in the wild. That really makes me wonder how they handle these oddly warm or oddly cold seasons in the wild. Do they just all not breed for a year? I almost feel like we're missing something there,
Well, I also think the answer to a lot of this is they're a lot hardier than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is we put them in captivity and we try to control everything. And obviously we're leaving things out. One, the option to go find whatever they need.
Right.
They can't go find that difference that they may need at that moment in time. That is definitely somewhere where they live and they can go find it. So.
Well, that's true. Like we're hitting one or two of their criteria, where in the wild they have 10 of them to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, you drop the temperatures in the cage during the winter, and that's what it is. But who the hell knows? But they're coming out during the winter and sitting in the sun and warming up during the day and going and find a hole that stays warm during the night. It's just there's so many things that go on that when it comes to it, we just can only do the best that we think we can get to. And it's a lot of times like when we talk about hot temperatures, like monitors we've talked about before. The way that a lot of people keep monitors may not be the best way, where they cook them at like 150 degrees. You have monitors love 150 degrees, but how often are those monitors really sitting in 150 degrees? Like, yeah, that's just
exactly. Yeah.
So,
and I think to that effect, I mean, for years, I think our temperatures, we looked at an area and what their daytime maximum highs were and daytime maximum lows, not realizing that these animals were finding their little microclimates and the niches where they wanted to spend the hot part of the day or the coldest part of the night. And, we weren't really looking at that kind of criteria. I mean, similar to the lines about how the outliers have become kind of the norm for size of snakes. We say, oh, they can get up to this. So we say, oh, they should be this. We tend to focus on the extremes for whatever reason.
Well, good. That brings me to our next question, kind of. The next question we asked this week was, what is your favorite snake that is under 3 feet long? So we're going the opposite of giant snakes. Last week we talked with Nick where we talked about coastal carpets. And I remember seeing coastal carpets get 12 to 14 foot long, and no one has a fucking coastal carpet at 12 or 14 foot. But I have definitely shifted most of my collection towards things under 3 feet. I still have my boas because I love my boas. But there's a lot of cool stuff that is 3 foot or less. And so I asked all of our listeners, and I want to go through several of them. Bill Bradley said egg eaters, centipede eaters, slug eaters, and crayfish snakes, which I saw my first crayfish snake in person this past week. Which was it was a pretty snake. I mean, it was a very pretty snake.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, if you're talking slug eaters, decays, brown snakes fit into that category. And I think decays, brown snakes, if I had the patience to feed worms to a snake, I would own decays, brown snakes, because one, they're extremely variable. The one we found the other day was almost like a copper color.
Yeah.
And had tons of pattern on the back. And I'm sure we could have gone a mile down the road and found one that was brown or gray or black. They're very extremely variable. So they are an awesome snake. I've said before, I'm lazy and I want stuff that eats mice because it's just easier for me. Our friend Tracy said garter snakes and hog noses. There's a lot of really cool garter snakes, but again, I like stuff that eats mice, and I don't want to feed fish and all that stuff. But there are a lot of really pretty garter snakes. Hog noses, I just can't deal with the poop. I've said it before. The poop of a hog nose just turns me off. It's so horrible.
The smell?
Yes.
I think James is just a big baby.
I had
I've never smelled one of those.
Oh, I had one, just one. A friend gave me one, and every time it was shit in the rack, I could walk in the room and just smell it, and I'm like, nope, we're done.
You had a weird hog nose.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine a whole rack of that. I just couldn't do it.
That doesn't bother me at all.
Me either.
James
is sensitive.
I am. I have a very sensitive nose. I can smell like I don't like smelly stuff. Like the decay snake the other day was horrible. That thing must.
Yeah, it must on him, and the whole time in the truck he's over there like, oh, and I'm like, I don't.
But I'm also the guy that can smell like someone smoking in a car in traffic, like 5 cars away, and both of our windows are up. So I just.
So here's a question, James.
Yes.
Did you change diapers when your kid was a baby?
Well, yeah, because I wanted to stay married.
Oh, my brother, 2 kids, never did. He
Now-
never changed a single dirty diaper.
Now I don't do
I don't know
bodily.
how he got away with that.
I don't do like bodily fluids, like vomit. Not my job. When I walked in and found that my daughter got into her diaper and then smeared it all over her crib and her wall and herself, I closed the door, walked away, and told my wife it's her daughter. Like that I don't do.
Wow.
But
I'm so glad I'm past the diaper stage with
Wow.
all my kids.
Me too.
look, my daughter, when she was a baby, would have, and it's going to be more information anybody wants to hear, solid, regular poop all the time until my wife left me alone with her. And 30 minutes after my wife's gone, fucking liquid diarrhea. I'm like, what the hell? Every
I'm
time.
glad I'm past that stage too, Jason. I mean, I said the other day we were talking about it, and I said the next person that'll probably be in diapers in my house is me.
You know, it's that to me was a huge milestone when
Oh,
we were
God.
done with diapers for good. And my youngest is in a booster seat. And when we got rid of the actual car seat that I had to strap in and never be able to figure out how to unstrap without, killing my hands, like
Uh-huh.
those are the 2 for me that were big milestones so far.
Yeah, we're done with all that.
Yeah, that
We're
was right.
done with all the
We're done
seats
with-
now too, and it's amazing.
We're done with school for one of them because she graduated. So, yeah, that's great.
Nice.
So Darren Watson named one of my favorite snakes that I don't own and probably won't. But again, Viper Boas. I had one. It's the only wild caught snake I ever got. It was definitely wild caught. I got it. It never ate. It ended up starving to death because it just wouldn't eat for me.
I would love some of those one day.
But I may do them one day once enough people captive breed them. They're eating rodents on a regular basis when they're born, and they may not want to kill me. But I love Viper Boas. That's another one that is extremely expensive for something that used to be really cheap. But
Well, from what I understand, those almost need to be kept in swampy conditions.
yeah, well, that's
You know,
why
they,
whenever you,
they need a wet cage, which again, that would be extremely hard for me to do in Colorado.
well, and it's if you ever see them when they come in wild, you always have to wait for them to shed to actually see what they look like, because they all come in covered in tannins, which tells you they're sitting in this wet forest floor. So, yeah, that's
Which is funny that it took people that long to figure it out, because right there's a big clue, right?
yeah.
But I feel like that was one that the requirements were very misunderstood when those were first, coming in a lot.
Yeah, if they come in stained, you probably are not going to put them in a dry, sterile habitat. That's probably not the best bet.
Yeah, if we weren't transporting them in tea.
So I like Viper Boas. I don't know when I'll own one again, but I do. I've always loved them. Miguel Villa said Western Hog Noses. That's his favorite. All right, Scott Wright. This one, he said he's kept a lot of species, including Eastern Indigo, which definitely doesn't fall into that group. But then he said his Thamnophis genus, which is the egg eaters. I've never had an egg eater. I get it. They're cool. They don't fit into my group of snakes I like. Nathan Holcomb said Decay's brown snakes. I said earlier. I think Decay's brown snakes are an awesome snake to keep if you can feed worms. I've watched on Snake Discovery. I've watched Emily. She'll cut up little pieces of worm and feed them to the babies.
Oh, wow.
Mhm.
That's more patience than I have. Chris Barnes says haven't actually kept either one, but Antaresia or Sambos. I haven't one children's python. I bought her with the hopes of I really like snakes under 3 feet. I really don't like her. Well, I take it back. I love the way she looks. She looks awesome, but she's a bitch, and I can't hold her.
Children's are like that. The name's deceptive.
Yes, I can't enjoy her. I'm like, I had her. I took her for an educational thing, just in a little exoterrace. People could see her. I ended up having to put her away because she would just sit there, kept striking at the side. So I'm like, you suck. I do love Samboas, all of them. I'm working on getting all of them. Right now I'm at rough scale Samboas, Kenyan Samboas, Indian Samboas, and now Black Russian Samboas. I need to get.
You have Indians?
I do have a pair of Indians.
Nice.
Sunset, like F5, so they're really pretty orange. That's a weird one. If you've never held one, they have tails, and it's the weirdest thing on earth. Because
I haven't. I've kind of admired them from afar. They're one. with some of the larger boas, I feel like I'm getting a lot more interest into locality type stuff.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I find really interesting about the sand boas as well, is there's, a pretty diverse look within localities. It's kind of fun, It is, it's one of those that I guess that was part of the draw with rosy boas for me too. Like you just, you want one of everything.
Well, the Indians are funny. I fed them the other night, and so I fed her, and as soon as I fed her and her mouth was preoccupied with the food, she stuck her tail up in the air, and you could see her wiggling it around like it's a head. So you can see her trying to keep you preoccupied while she eats.
Like a rubber boa.
Yeah, a lot like her. But this tail is much longer. And like I said, the first time it wrapped its tail around my finger, I was like, what the fuck is this? The sand boas don't have tails.
They still don't hold on.
Yeah. So I always say that sand boas could fall off the floor. They are ridiculous. But I have that.
So do you have a favorite?
I don't know. I really like the Kenyans because I love the genetics. But with that said, rough scales give you that awesome little viper look, which looks really awesome with the pattern and the way they are. But then Indians are just so freaking weird, and that female is going to get like 3 foot long and be big, as for sand boa, be very large. But then I also have a solid black sand boa, and it looks fucking Russian sand boa, and it looks awesome too. So it's hard to choose one. I really want an Arabian. Their derpy sock puppet looking faces. I want that, but the problem is
the Arabians, are those the ones that are the other egg layer besides Saharans?
Yes, they're the ones, but their eggs incubate longer. The Saharans incubate for like up to 14 days, and they're born, and they're very thin. The Arabians have longer gestation or longer incubation time. But they're also the ones that everybody, when they talk about a dumb looking snake, it's them with their eyes up on top of their head, looking like little googly eyes.
That's just mean to them, though. I mean, they're that way for a reason, right?
Yeah, because they work great for sitting in the sand with those eyes. Just
they're like
right
the little tiny anaconda in the desert.
Exactly. Angel said ring snakes. I had one ring snake once. I could never get it to eat. But they are a very pretty snake. I also didn't realize I was at a herp show once. Someone told me that they're venomous, but I think they're venomous in the same way like a garter snake's venomous.
It's hard to believe that everything's venomous.
It feels that way.
Yeah.
At least a lot of the colubrids.
I just don't want any of the legislatures to figure that shit out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because then we'll be like Colorado, and you can't keep, hog nose.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah.
Stephen Livingston said rosy boas. I love my Mexican rosy boas, but I know, Jason, you said you like the locale stuff. That's the one reason I can't get into rubber boa or rosy boas very much, is because it is very much a locale driven group of snakes.
It is almost to an extreme that I think it's taken a little bit too far. Because there really is stuff, down to a certain road marker almost.
It's a lot like gray bands.
Find stuff on.
The way people it's a lot like gray banded king snakes, where everybody's like, well, if it comes from this side of the road next to this rock, it's this kind. But if it's on the other side of a cactus, it's this. Like, that's a little too specific for me.
Now, the one thing with rosies, though, there is a very big visual difference from ones from different areas, and that I think is one of the draws with them. Interestingly enough, I was mentioning like with the boas, I'm getting a lot more interest in the different locality stuff. Like last year, I produced my first Pearl Island boa. That was really fun, to have one of those, and I'd like to get some more island locale specifically stuff. But with the rosy boas, I'm actually been shifting more into morphs. And I think part of that is maybe, I don't know, maybe I just see that too much of it is so locale specific. I mean, you lose one animal and you're kind of stuck on a project, something like that. But I with the morphs, I started with a group I got from Keith Carlson of his Carlson Snows back in, I want to say they were 03s that I got in 04. And it was a group of 5 possible hets that all proved out. Like the first year I got snows on all of them, which was amazing for like the 1 in 16 odds to each female to hit it and prove it out. But that's kind of just driven this desire, I guess, to see just different morphs and rosies. And that's kind of shunned upon to a certain extent with the rosies, because there is a lot of purity involved in that one.
It's all that locale stuff.
But there's some beautiful stuff being made with the morphs,
Yeah, well, and they're definitely different. Like, because So I've got Mexican rosies. So people will see the Mexican rosies and go, well, what is that? And I'm like, oh, they'll ask what morph it is. I'm like, it's not a morph. It's just a Mexican rosy. Everybody's used to that red and tan or red and bluish looking color rosy boa. And so when they see that tan and black one, they're not used to that.
Well, and the Mexicans have such a perfect stripe too.
Yes.
I mean, that throws people with them. It's such a, I mean, it's almost like a sharp line, like a Sharpie did it. Those are some of the prettier ones.
Let's see. Sean McCarthy also said Viper boas. Chris Sexton cheated, and cheaters don't win. He said baby Morelia.
That's what I was going to say.
That's cheating. They don't stay small. They don't count. Wiley Cunningham said his male Halmahera ground boa, and his wife also loves garters. I don't know the Halmahera. I mean, I'm assuming it's falls in the same group as like Paul's and I and all that kind of stuff. The little ground boas from over there. But Grants said hog nose. Of course, the Grants of hog nose. Ryan Goslow went saw scaled viper. Yes, it's very cool, but I'm not holding it. Lavissa said Daisy Peltis Ganzai. I looked that up. That I think is an egg eater.
A what?
I think that's an egg eater. That's the one that was egg eater. The other one earlier was garter snakes. That's an egg eater. Daisy Peltis Ganzai or Ganzi. Andrew Turner said a Wagler's viper. Brandon Millichamp said speckled hog nose, which get larger than the 3 feet, so that's cheating also. Kyle Phillips said rosy boas.
Robert Powers said rosy boas. I mean, hog nose, but didn't type it.
You just said it. Good job.
Yeah.
Jeff Opes said Candoia. Paul's and I. That's the ground boas. Why can I not think of what area of the world they come from? Because what they're named. It's whatever ground boas. It's the ones. It's not Indonesia.
Solomon Island.
Yeah, that area. The Grants also said sand boas as well. So, which one is your favorite small? Since you have several of them, Jason, which one's your favorite?
My favorite small one?
Yeah, something under 3 foot.
The rubber boas have a real special place in my heart. They were one of the earlier snakes that I bred. They were the favorite of my best friend who passed away in 2002. In fact, he was my wife's older brother. We started dating about a year after he passed away, and his mom actually still has his rubber boas at her house.
Oh, wow.
And so these are 26-year-old rubber boas, and they've produced multiple times. And so those are just always kind of special to me. They're also one that I think I've taken one bite ever from a rubber boa. They're just docile.
Oh yeah.
Calm. I mean, it's almost like they like to be held, and I know that's probably just more like they're getting the warmth off of your hand, but the way that they curl around your wrist or your fingers, there's just something different about them. I mean, they're such an anomaly for snakes in general to have these ones that can be found active in light snow. They're just amazing to me. I really enjoy my rosy boas too, but they are a nippy snake, and that's one thing that people have to realize. They're a smaller snake. They're a really good snake, but they have a really strong feeding response, and part of that is that they winter, and so they're naturally used to fasting, so they probably have this feast or famine mindset when it's warm enough, because they will strike at almost anything.
Yes,
and you have to almost learn how to handle a rosy boa.
Well, they don't.
So you're not getting hit.
And they don't always just strike. They also do that thing where they're crawling around in your hand, and then they just slowly turn their head.
Push. and
then they're biting you. All of a sudden, I'm holding it, and now its mouth is on my hand.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, people will hold mine, and when I see that nose start pushing into their hand or their arm or whatever, and I'm like, it's about to bite. No, it likes me. And nope, it's the weirdest thing the way they do that.
Corn snakes will do that too sometimes. Seems like every time we go over to one of the breeders' houses with my son, he's like, this one never bites anybody, and it always starts smelling Logan's arm and then just bites him.
Yeah, just takes a bite
every time. Yeah.
What kind of snake did you say, Robert?
Corn snakes. They'll just
snake,
nuzzle up against you and go, oh, look, this looks like a good spot. Let me bite you here.
Blackheads do that too.
Yeah, but I'll say blackheads. You got blackheads, they'll do that too.
Yeah, they'll just kind of nuzzle up and go.
I'd have to, for this, when it goes to the things under 3 feet, now that I have the rubber boas, it's rubber boas for me. Getting them was just one of those childhood dreams. Like I've said it before, I remember looking in the Audubon field guide and seeing a picture of a rubber boa when I was 12 going, I want that snake because it's a North American boa. And then I finally you could ask Katie, you couldn't have gotten a smile off my face if you tried when I opened that box and I was holding rubber boas for the first time. And now that I can walk into my snake room and I've got 4 of them, it's amazing. And
they're awesome, aren't they?
Well, but you definitely got to be someone who like, and I think really enjoys that kind of snake, because for a lot of people, it's just a fucking worm. Like, it doesn't look. It's very plain because it's just this, as a baby, it's this little tan colored snake that doesn't have any pattern. It's not flashy, but to me, it's just such a really, really cool snake. And I mean, it's one of the 2 boa species that we have in North America, so it's cool to own them.
Yep, I'm gonna get some eventually.
You'll get a kick out of this. When I guess it was about 15 years ago, but my grandparents had come to visit, and so I mentioned I was born in Texas, and then when I was pretty young, when my parents split up, we moved to Northern California, where my mom was from, and my grandparents lived up in the Sierras, pretty high altitude and stuff, and so they had come to visit one time and wanted to see the animals, and so I'm showing around the basement, and I'm telling them, oh, this is from here, this is, all these different things that I had, and I get to the rubber boas, and I start to talk, and my grandma goes, I know what a rubber boa is, I move those out of my garden all the time. I'm like, are you kidding me, Grandma? All the times I've tried to find them in the wild, and never been able to see them, and she's like, oh, it's in my garden, I don't want to hit it with the shovel, let's move it.
Technically, Boa Sigma is also North American, just not in the U.S. Yeah, I'm not counting it. We're talking just U.S. here. So we're not counting Central or Mexico or whatever. But yeah. The thing that sucks though for the folks that are in the River Boa range is they don't get to keep them.
Yeah.
No.
Like that's enough right there for me never to move to the Northwest or Idaho or anywhere. Like not being able to keep them. Like it's a nightmare to go. You have one of the coolest animals in this country just roaming your yard, and you're like, can't pick it up, can't have it.
So in some of their range, you can keep them, like you can catch them and keep them. You can't breed them or sell them.
Yeah, see, that's the fun part, though. That's the fun part.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. That would be hard just to look at them from afar. And
I couldn't have 2 of them and go, nope, not gonna breed them. Like
oops, it happened on accident.
Yep,
I didn't mean to do that. Yeah,
she slipped, fell, landed. Oh, wait.
So Corey, this would be a weird question for you because you've gone the exact opposite direction, and you're like, I want really long snakes.
I like big snakes usually, but I like hog noses. I have hog noses. I have my first clutch on the ground of hog noses. So,
do any of those eggs have the little windows in them? Because I know hog noses.
Yeah, they do. And they kind of sometimes as they get closer to hatching, they'll get more translucent.
What's the pairing on them, Corey?
This one was red albino het azanthic to snow.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at those when they hatch.
Yeah.
I happen to have some of those same genes.
What do you know?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so our last question was, we had a lot of questions this week because I had one and then Jason gave me 2 really good ones. So I was like, we'll ask all these.
Yeah, it was like every evening my phone would start blowing up because Jane would post a question and then all the responses come to my phone too.
So this was, what is your favorite DIY tool, trick, or hack in the reptile room? And I think I've asked this one before, but it's interesting to ask it again now just because sometimes it changes. We have a whole bunch of new people that listen. I love Jay's answer. He had a beer fridge. That was very important.
That's fantastic. I like that a lot.
Sure, a beer
That's
fridge.
about 3 feet from the door outside of my snake room.
Gina said a straight blade box cutter to scrape dried gecko food off of glass enclosures. That's not an issue for me, but if anybody has that, that'd be useful. Brandon said Dollar Tree water bowls. I do love, I use a little Dollar Tree. They come in a 3-pack, the little plastic ramekin bowls. They fit great in my like smaller Samboa tubs. And it's $1 for 3 of them. I do love those. Magnets along the metal shelves to hold tongs, which I do have one of those magnets used for like holding knives, like next to your stove. I did strap that onto one of my racks, and that's where my feeding tongs go, so they're always right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then a squeeze bottle for Pangea gecko food, which we have a squeeze bottle for keeping gecko food in. That's a good one. And a lot of that stuff comes from Dollar Tree or cheap at Walmart. Darren said a Dremel. I do love a Dremel tool. Those are amazing because I don't know. I'm sure everybody at some point has melted holes into a tub for air holes.
Yep.
And that's a pain in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, a Dremel tool makes it so much easier. You gotta be careful because sometimes some of them can break. But
you guys don't solder them?
I solder.
I used to. I don't anymore. I have a Dremel tool.
So the first time I bred the black Russian sand boas, they actually came out of the solder holes.
Oh shit!
That happened to me with house
So-
snakes.
Did it really?
Yep.
It was quite a shock to me. I like I said, I was treating them like my rosy boas, and I remember telling my wife I would be, based on the female side, I said I'm going to be super excited if I get at least 4 of these babies. And there was 14 in the tub, and I found them as some of them were coming out of the hole. They were the
Oh
the
my
small-
goodness.
Awesome. Now I have to
Because
worry
I mean, when
about
a rosy boa is born, it's like the size of like a number 2 pencil,
that.
And these little sand boas are tiny.
Jeez. That's one, Corey. No one mentioned house snakes. That's
I
one.
know.
that's
I'm
like-
surprised no one mentioned house snakes. They weren't for me, but they're one that should. They're getting pretty popular. You'd
I
think
thought
that they
about
would show
getting
up.
into them. There's some really awesome colors in those, like some olive green,
Yeah.
like yellow striping. That's really pretty.
Yeah.
And to me, they look like South Africa's version of a corn snake.
Yeah, that's kind of why I didn't dig them. Like it felt. I mean, it had a different, slightly different features, but it felt just very corn snake-ish.
Because it looks like a python, but it acts like a
Mhm.
corn snake.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who has one female house snake that she's had since it was a baby 3 years ago, and it laid eggs last night, and they're viable eggs.
Wow.
They have veins, so apparently
That's cool.
parthenogenesis is
I think
a
that's cool.
thing in house snakes.
That'd be interesting.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Because she's like, I don't even know what to do to incubate these. Like, what temperature do you keep your snake room?
I would imagine you should put those on a shelf.
She said, I keep it
Mhm.
78 to 80. I said, put them on a shelf. They'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah.
But they have corn snake eggs. We had one more say quick reflexes and hands, especially for emerald tree boa enclosures.
Eesh.
Sometimes there are some snakes where quick reflexes come in handy.
hmm
I don't have those.
Emily said tissues and band-aids. She has
Oh.
bitey milk snakes.
I'm with you, Corey.
Aw.
Normally, I'm already bleeding before I flinch.
Yep.
Fucking Douglas Ray White. Douglas Ray White said, mostly my wife. She keeps me straight most of the time. He also said a butter knife to remove urates in corners of tubs, hydrogen peroxide or Germ-X just in case the king snakes decide they'd rather try to eat them. Old Douglas.
I miss Doug. I'm sure we'll see him at Slidell next weekend.
Yes. Oh, Douglas Ray.
I don't think I've seen
I
Doug.
can't help but say because it's Sean's fault.
He says Douglas Ray White.
But he goes Douglas Ray White.
Yeah.
Like I can't help but say it like that.
I don't think they were at Conroe.
I don't think so.
I don't think I saw him and Tasha.
If they were, they didn't come say hi to us, and I'm very
Well,
upset.
I didn't see a lot of people at Conroe because I was so damn busy.
Victor says he uses the plastic toolboxes and converts them into hides from Dollar Tree, little black and
That's what I have in my rats. I use
Yeah.
those for my rats.
Oh, cool.
That's an Emily from Snake Discovery trick.
yeah. And then old Heidi Jack. I think this is definitely Jack writing this.
Yeah, it was. He told me
yeah.
afterwards.
It says just get to work.
Yeah, that sounds like Jack.
That definitely sounds like Jack.
Yep.
And then Sean said plain brown Listerine to clean and disinfect.
Works great.
Works good. I love
You say
this.
Listerine?
Yeah.
Yes. The plain brown, you can, if you even want to be even cheaper, you just get the dollar store brand. But
That's the unscented, like the unflavored kind?
Yeah.
yep,
Huh. I've never even considered that.
yep.
I've started.
Is that what you
using-
guys use for cleaning?
No,
I've
I-
used it in a pinch, but I sell
I use
chlorhexidine,
chlorhexidine.
so I always have
Yeah.
chlorhexidine.
I like the smell of chlorhexidine and how safe it is.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I use.
I do the chlorhexidine. I rotate what I use. So I use that F10, and then when I do a thorough cleaning of everything, I do it with bleach.
I haven't done bleach in forever, and it's made me so happy. I used to do bleach, but the problem was
Bleach
one,
will cut the urates better than anything else.
yeah, it just also it ate through the seals of every spray bottle I ever used.
Well, you have to buy one that's made for bleach.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm cheap.
Well, for me, I clarify. Like to me, bleach is when I do the tubs.
Yeah,
Like if I'm taking an animal out of a tub and it's getting a new tub before anything else goes back in that tub, it gets soaked in a bleach and water solution in my laundry sink. I wash it out with that, and then I wash it out with dish soap. So it's never like
Gotcha.
a straight bleach that's in a spray bottle type of thing. I do use the chlorhexidine and the F10 in spray bottles, but I heard or read somewhere a long time ago that certain bacteria can get like resistant,
yes,
and
I've
so
heard
that's
that.
why I try to mix it up.
Mhm.
I have heard that, and that's probably that's 100% the better way to go. But we've already covered this in this episode that I'm lazy, and so it's sticking with chlorhexidine.
He says that, and he wants to come work for me at some point.
I was working today.
He says that
I
a
drilled a
lot.
crap ton of holes today.
You did drill a crap ton of holes today.
Making rat racks. All right, so let's move as long as we're coming up with 2 hours. I do want to. So, I did watch a video. I told you today I was gonna say something nice, probably for the first time in a long time or ever, about Brian Barczyk. Because I know on here I normally talk a lot of shit about Brian Barczyk, and I feel it's warranted. But his video that he let out today was a Make-A-Wish. There was a girl that wanted to make a wish to come to the Serpentarium and do all of that, and I thought that was amazing. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Brian Barczyk for doing the Make-A-Wish thing. I think that's really cool. The girl has like a heart condition, a serious heart condition, and so I saw that. I just wanted to throw that out there. Robert, cool. do you want to talk about your stupid people of the internet?
I don't have a whole lot this week.
Can I interject real quick? I got to say, Robert, this has become one of my favorite parts of the show every week. So
let me see.
Do us proud.
I was just looking at one where some guy in a group was talking about his 22-foot ball python.
I found one in my neighborhood group today. Someone was like, "Hey, did anyone lose a lizard?" And apparently there was a tegu running around our neighborhood.
Oh shit!
Oh, cool.
Or at least it wasn't a picture of like a green and old.
This girl posted a picture yesterday in one of the ball python groups of her 2 ball pythons in an arboreal glass enclosure, and she's talking about, look, they think they're tree pythons. And people tried to give her a little bit of advice. She got really snarky and left the group. But I went and looked at her page, and she's one of those that's like, look, I took my snake to Harmon and Ross and Dollar Tree today, and he took over the store. And so many people were scared. It was hilarious watching them jump. And yeah, so she's one of those.
That helps none of us. There was this one that
ruin it for all of us.
Yeah.
Same with feeding videos.
This is my segment, sir.
But I had one from John Grant that I thought was funny.
Okay.
He sent us one. It was a post where one goes, she was told this guy's a pine snake, but she has no clue what it is. And it's a Vietnamese beauty snake.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how wrong you could have been to think it was a pine snake. Oh,
this is one from one of the Arkansas groups. Someone posted a picture of a baby copperhead, and they were like, "Oh, look at this baby that we found. I unfortunately hit it with my lawnmower. I was playing with it a little bit. It never tried to bite me." And then somebody's like, "This is a picture from the internet. Here's where it was posted 4 years ago."
That's right.
Wow. Oh my god!
Do you feel like you need that much attention? And then she like kept arguing. No, I took this picture this morning, and we're like,
he wouldn't have found it.
Here's 100 times this picture's been shared in this group.
Here's one from a hybrid group that JT shared with us. Question was, is there any hybrids with a king snake with a savu python?
Yeah.
The fuck?
That's why we can't have nice things.
Right. Yeah, that one was good. Let's see. I've been pretty busy this week, so I haven't looked at a lot of them.
I love this one. Person in World of Ball Python says, I have a granite ball python. What should I breed her with? And the person just goes, a raccoon.
Well, like this person that was looking to buy a leopard gecko with an enclosure for $100.
And no one answered.
Commented and said, anyone? And then said, I'll pay 107 to 110. That's some very specific
price range.
Yeah.
$111. I just won't do it. It's too much.
Yeah.
106 is just not enough.
That's those people again.
Oh,
there's the pine snake, Safu python.
Yeah,
Bob Vu posted his thing this week about the proper way to rep your Venom Life shirt with something dangerous, and it's him and his fiance or wife, and then it's got the dude from South Carolina that has now lost all of his snakes or North Carolina, and it's probably going to cause everyone there to lose their venomous snakes.
I liked this one. I think it was a water snake, and the person goes, headed exactly there in a week. So the person said it was a copperhead, and the person says it's not a copperhead, and they were like, how do you know by only the markings? It has to be a copperhead. I'm like, they know by the markings. It's not a copperhead.
Okay, I'm going to play some audio real quick.
Oh God.
Let's see if this works. This is a person videoing a snake in Massachusetts.
Oh.
All right, here we go.
That's a good one. I'll turn it up.
Hey, snake identifiers. I just found this snake. I'm pretty sure it's a boa constrictor, but I'm not 100%.
It's a water snake.
And I was hoping you guys could help me out. It's alive and it's moving. Either some kind of python or boa constrictor. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Yep. That's what it had to be.
Yep.
In Massachusetts, by the way.
I mean,
Yeah.
could have been anything. Could have been anything native, but no, it's got to be a boa or a python.
It's a common water snake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, these people make life worth living. That's the professional massage therapist.
Oh, the guy.
Yeah. Okay, we'll leave that one. We're just gonna pass that one.
So, anyways, all right. Corey, do you have anything else?
No.
Oh.
I was late to looking.
So we didn't get to talk about a lot. I wanted to talk about more with Jason about.
You didn't do your sponsor blurb.
Oh, I didn't do my.
Don't worry about it.
I do need to say the sponsors though. So if you need a reptile rack, Lone Star, lsreptileracks.com.
Boom.
Go to lsreptileracks.com or other sponsor plug. Come to Slidell in 2 weeks.
You better get there early on Saturday.
Yes, for the
Herp show. Anything like the last show.
Herp Slidell. That if you're anywhere within a drive of Slidell, Louisiana for the Herp show, you should be at that one. That's going to be a pretty big show. It's starting to rival the Conroe show. I think it missed the Conroe show numbers by like 10 people last time. So it's a pretty big show. That is in 2 weeks. And then the week after that, we're in Oklahoma City. So Oklahoma City. And then our other sponsor is Wiregrass Exotics. If you're anywhere near Ozark, Alabama, or anywhere near Southeast Alabama, go by and see Wiregrass Exotics. They showed an awesome picture today. They took their snake in to the vet, and they took a rattlesnake into the vet the other day. And the vet knew, and it was to help also train some of the people there. But they wanted to ultrasound it to see if it had any babies. It did not, unfortunately. But that was some really cool pictures of the people that they had it tubed properly. It was all done. They didn't just walk in with a rattlesnake in a bag and throw it on a table. So it was done properly. But go by Wiregrass Exotics and check out. They have a hot room. You can go by and you can see their hots, all their venomous snakes. For those that don't know what a hot is, it's venomous snakes.
They just got a whole bunch of corn snake morphs in. So they have a bunch of stuff. I'm looking forward to going and visiting their store.
Yeah, and they have feeders. They have a really cool feeder program there, like for crickets. You pay for all of your crickets, and then you get them as you need. So at the beginning of the month, go in and pay for your, I think it's like 500 crickets, and then you pick them up as you need. Oh, shit.
Something fell out of my pocket. I like their post from a couple of days ago. Proven breeder, blue racer, mostly tame. Probably as tame as a blue racer gets.
Oh. Jason, you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure. I didn't want to apologize if I interrupted or talked over anybody at all. I got every once in a while my phone's been getting a little choppy. So if I did, I do apologize for that. But otherwise, I had a great time.
Are you doing the Pueblo show in October?
I'm hoping to.
All right.
I do need to sign up for it, but yeah, I'd like to. The Pueblo show that we just did in May, that was the first show I've done in probably 2 years, and I really enjoyed it. It was kind of fun to do it again, and that's a great group of people. I was really impressed with everybody I met and the warm welcome I got.
Yeah, if you're gonna come back and do a show after not doing a show for a long time, I think a herp show is the best way you could have gone. Because
it's funny. I mentioned that I did a lot of shows for a while, then I took a break, and then I did some shows that they only did like 2 of them, and then that promoter kind of backed off, and then I did another one that was 2, and then I think COVID might have kind of shut them down, and so I hadn't done it in a while, and you're right, that was a great one to come back to. And it's funny because I get very almost apprehensive, like before something like that. I'm like, why did I sign up for this? I don't want to do it, and then once you're there, it was a really great time. Like I said, I enjoyed meeting all the people I did, just a great group of people. Robert, I really liked that, Logan's the same age as my oldest son that came with me, because they could kind of pal around, and I felt great knowing that he wasn't by himself wandering around.
I think really they hung out quite a bit together and had a good time. Logan actually asked about him the other day, and I said, well, hopefully they'll be there in October when we go back.
I'd like to bring my whole family when I come back, bring the other kids and my wife with me, because that one felt very much like a family affair. I guess,
definitely.
All the herp shows are like that.
Fun.
Yeah. I just wish I could make it to that one, but I'll have a job and I can't.
Yeah, James won't be able to come to that one.
That's too far away.
That's in the middle of the run of 5 shows in a row.
Oh, wow.
One of which is Amarillo, and 2 weeks later is it's like we have.
That's like almost why even bother driving home.
I think it's the first one. Well, we have Pueblo, then we have Temple, then we have Amarillo.
Oh.
So it's
I imagine Pueblo is the furthest you go, Robert.
yeah, 16 hours and then 3 hours and then 11 hours. And then
So
Yeah.
Slidell's in there somewhere, right?
Slidell and Oklahoma City, I think, are the next two.
Wow.
Maybe
We're
not
driving
Oklahoma.
to Texas next week to see my family down there, and it's like 18 or 20 hour drive. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
We're at in Texas.
He told you the other day.
They live in Angleton.
Oh,
Well, I've heard you talk about the what's it called, the crocodile encounter.
yeah.
They're about 10 and 15 miles south of that on 288.
We're
you're-
about 10 miles north
You're like
of that.
driving past our house.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, probably. Yeah, because you guys are a little north, because you're a little closer to Brazos Bend, it sounds like.
Yeah. So you should holler
So
at us.
from
when
their
you're here.
house, it's about maybe 35, 40 minutes to
So
Brazos
yeah,
Bend.
if you have free time, you should definitely come by and hang out, and we could go herping.
Hey, that'd be cool. My kids want to go to crocodile encounter. Maybe we could all meet up there or something.
Yeah.
I haven't been yet.
And I'd like to see Brazos Bend. That was always, I don't know if you saw I commented on that post, but
Yeah.
my dad used to take me camping there when I was a kid. And so that kind of has special memories to me and my sisters and my stepmom and stuff. My dad passed away in 2019 and about a month before his birthday. And so I flew down there and we all spent his birthday at Brazos Bend because that was a cool place for our family,
Well, that'd be awesome. Yeah, you definitely have to. If you've got some time, contact us. I mean, because Robert and I live like 4 minutes away from each other, so it's easy for us to come down and see you.
Yeah.
But
All right.
let me go ahead and real quick. I dropped the ball on all this, but our giveaway last month was for a catchy bug catcher, and I finally did the whole thing and picked the winner. The winner is, and if he's listening live, he'll know now. If not, I'll message him later. But it is Nathan Holcomb.
Oh.
Nathan Holcomb
Cool.
won the catchy bug catcher, and I will
Nice.
get that taken care of, get with him, get that sent to him. I also have a sponsor for this month, even though I have not pushed it yet. We will put up a thing probably tomorrow. The Grants, Grant Family Exotics, want to sponsor again this month, and we agreed we are going to do
A snake hook.
it's a whole thing. It's a whole kit and caboodle of stuff for your snake room, because you can never have enough tools in your snake room, because every time you need something you can't find it. But we're going to do a 12-inch hemostat, 12-inch tong, large cage hook, and a field hook, all from Best Exotics, which is our buddy Nine Finger Sean.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can pick it up at, if you win, you can pick it up at a Herps Reptile show, or JT will get that and he will ship it to you. But I got to talk to JT. We'll figure out. I'll post it tomorrow what you got to do to win that. But that is our giveaway this month. It'll be a
That's a
whole
cool one.
a whole kit of tools for you to use either in the field or in your herp room, however you want to do it. But we will figure out how we're going to give that away. But that is we'll give that away at the end of this month.
And those catchies are great too. Anybody that doesn't have one, if you didn't win it
Yes.
this month, you need to buy one.
They're wonderful.
I've never heard someone go, "No, I don't like it."
Yeah.
That thing is
Dude, those fruit flies in the snake room are so damn annoying, and that really it works very well.
like I said, you never realize how many flies you have in there until you put a catchy up and you're like,
Right.
holy shit, there were a lot of flies in here.
Yeah.
But then they're one of those things where I think it's just you can't help it. We own animals in the house and they're pooping, and you just can't help flies. It doesn't mean that your collection is
It's
dirty.
inevitable.
It just happens.
I breed them. I breed the flightless ones for
Ugh.
our dart frogs, and then Ivan supplements them with his geckos a little bit. But they're a necessary evil, but they're not as bad as rats and mice. Let's put it that way. But feeders in general aren't fun.
No.
Hey, some senators, as federal senators, draft some legislation today to do away with the federal prohibition on cannabis.
Oh. Getting
All
one
right.
step closer to having weed.
Yep,
So
legally.
but I will contact Nathan. We'll get him his catchy bug catcher, and he can start catching flies, which I think I need to get another one. I need to get one for my new snake room to me it's 2 rooms because I took the door off the pretty big closet. And so I have my isopod room, which also has my incubator and my fridge for the winter, which is technically the closet, but it's a big closet. And then I have my snake room. So I need to get a catchy for both of those locations. Because if you do any sort of bioactive or have any dirt whatsoever, you're going to end up with flies at some point. It's just, they happen. So, but that is all I've got. Jason, thank you for coming on. There was a lot of stuff I want to talk about rainbow boas and sand boas, and I just forgot to. So you'll have to come on again. But anybody else? Anybody else got anything? We're good.
Nope.
Corey, thank you for filling in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
Thanks for having me.
I think Katie's back next week. Well, she won't be here physically back, but
okay.
She's back to hosting.
I think she'll be back hosting. If not, we may see if Corey comes back. I don't know. You'll see. But thanks, Jason. If people want to get a hold of you and reach out to you, especially about the Black Russian Sambo as well, before I get my female, I need to get a female from you, so no one else is allowed to buy those. But if they want to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
I don't have a whole lot right now. I mean, I got a Facebook page, Top Line Constrictors, and you can get me at toplineconstrictors at gmail.com, or my personal Facebook page. I would say I do work a lot, so I'm not the fastest at responding. So don't be offended if it takes me a day or two to get back to messages and stuff. Just because I got kids, I got a full snake room, and I work 60, 70 hours a week. So that's kind of where I'm at.
You officially have the funnest name of any guest I've had.
Oh, thank you.
Milleranovich.
There's not many of us around, that's for sure. In fact, I think the majority of the Miloradovich in the country are now in Colorado, since I had 3 boys.
All right, Corey, if they want to get a hold of you.
Yeah. So it's Corey Martin Reptiles on Facebook and on Instagram. Easy enough to find.
Corey with the K.
Corey with the K. Kori.
And so pay attention. She's got some hog noses coming up in the next couple months. So you can get a hog nose
and a whole bunch of other things.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you'll be very glad to have babies again.
I have a lot of babies now. They're coming back.
I don't know if I told you, but can I talk about that, Corey? About what happened with that one snake?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, she found that snake.
Which snake?
I did.
What was it, Corey?
Yep. So it was a carpet python. So I had purchased So I had purchased a rack from a different rack vendor. Not Robert. I am only going with Robert now. His stuff is wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes, I have my custom one and I love it. But it wasn't tacked down properly in the back. And so there was a gap between where the shelf was and where the back wall was. And so I pushed the bin in, didn't realize there was a gap there, and the baby got out the back. Ugh. And so I went on vacation and came back, and it was just chilling on my table in the snake room.
Awesome.
She figured it was going to be dead because
I was certain it hadn't shed. Yep, right out in the open. It hadn't shed yet when it got out. So I was sure it was just going to dehydrate and not make it, but it was fine.
Did it shed while it was on the run?
Oh, nope. Awesome. Nope. It shed after it came back into its bin.
Nice.
Yep. But it was out for like a good week and a half. So
yeah. Because you guys went to Florida for like a week.
We did. Yeah. I was really surprised. So
that's awesome.
It ended well, but I was so mad, man, when I figured that out.
Yes, you were.
All right. So Robert, if you want to get a hold of you and get a rack that won't fall apart on them.
You already did this.
I did the sponsor thing, but I didn't do where you.
Oh, it's still the same. Website, lsreptileracks.com.
See, I had to get. If you want to get a hold of me, it is simply_serpents on Instagram or simply serpents on Facebook. Please don't message me about Brazilian rainbow babies yet. I had one person already. I posted pictures of them last night. Do you have any Brazilian rainbow boas available? Dude, you just saw the babies that were just born that I hadn't.
Dude, that is the worst. It will not be the last.
Oh, I know.
That honestly, when I said I don't respond to messages real quick, I will say that is my biggest pet peeve, is when I post a picture and I say, these were born today. And people are like, how much? When can you ship it? And give me their zip code. It's like, it's not, no, I got to get them established. I got to get, I want to make sure they're healthy. And it's just, yeah. So people listening, please don't do that.
Yeah, they got to eat first. Let me get like 4 meals into them and then we'll see. Also, I don't know which
and
ones I'm keeping yet.
Don't message people and say, I want a complete list of everything you keep and what you currently have available.
Wow, I've never had that one.
I get that all the time, and it drives me nuts. I mean, I keep a variety of stuff, but I'm a hobbyist. I mean, anything I make goes back into the animals. Like,
yes.
If you want to talk about something specific, I'd be happy to take pictures, but I certainly don't have time to go through everything on a whim. And
can you tell me everything you have, when it was born, who you got it from?
Pictures of the mom. Pictures of the
Can you take 5 pictures of the mom from every side, top, bottom?
And then can you knock half the price off?
And then... Oh, do you want $600?
Ask my wife.
Yeah.
So do you guys ask for additional pictures when you buy snakes from people?
It depends. Usually not. Like, I'm buying Sambos mostly, and I can pretty much tell what the Sambo. Like, that's one of those snakes where you can get a pretty good picture of the whole thing, and I've got an idea of what I'm getting there.
It's like one of these doom rolls I was looking at earlier. All you can see is its head poking out of a tub.
Yes, that's not enough.
So yeah, I probably want more pictures.
Well, then there's also one picture of a doom rolls I saw where you can 100% tell there's a red light above the doom rolls because you can see the red light shining off of the black fabric. So that doom rolls is not as pink as that picture is showing. So that's one.
That makes sense. Yeah, you want an accurate picture.
Yeah, that's one where I'd be like, okay, can you take it outside and give me a picture of natural sunlight? That's what I want.
Good luck.
So I started first selling on king snake years ago, and before that, I'd say, oh, can I have more pictures? And once I started selling, and this was before cell phones had cameras,
Yeah.
I realized what a huge pain in the ass that is, and I vowed never to do that again unless there's a very specific reason, like you're saying, with weird lighting or something.
Yeah, and I get it if there's a certain pattern you're going for, and you can't be seen in the pictures. But to me, a good seller takes the proper picture. They take a picture that shows what needs to be seen on that snake. We saw a post earlier this week where someone complained about if people could just learn lighting, like learn how to light your animal properly. One, don't shine a red light on it to make it look pinker than it really is. That'd be the first thing. But I bought an iPhone 11 Pro purely so that I had enough cameras and good cameras to take pictures of snakes. That was the whole reason I bought that. And cell phone cameras now can take really good pictures if you just take the time to take the picture.
Watch how surprised you are of how hard it is to get accurate colors of those baby rainbows.
Oh, I know.
I don't know what it is about rainbows and the way that their scales reflect the light, but it's difficult with those to be, because some of them you're like, wow, that's not anywhere near that red. And then you'll take another picture and you go, whoa, that's not anywhere near that brown.
Yeah, I've talked about before. I've got a Super Salmon Ghost corn snake that every picture it looks great, but I'm telling you, it's Barbie pink. And I can't get it. No matter what I do, I can't get it in a picture. I mean, I guess maybe if I shined a red light on it from above, I can make it look that way.
A nice red heat lamp.
Yeah, just like it's sitting, at McDonald's waiting for me to get it. But so I've when I was younger, I definitely was, can I get more pictures? But I'm like, yeah, I can usually see what I need to see. Corey, I'm sure you get that question a lot.
What?
About pictures.
Well, yeah, I always have to give updated pictures because the carpets change every time they shed. So, yeah.
And I guess that makes sense, too, if you're dealing with animals that look different each and every shed. You do want to see updates.
Yeah. But I'm usually offering to do that. I'm not like getting demands for it usually. I'm just like, someone's interested and I'm like, oh, let me get you an updated picture. So,
yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You're nicer than me. I'm like, I don't know. Time to take another picture.
You're like, fuck off. I'll find somebody else. Moving on.
I'm newer. Yeah, exactly. I haven't been worn down yet. I'm sure it'll come.
Well, that's why, that's the cool thing about shows is you can let people handle it. You can let people see it in person and they can really make their own judgment, right then and there.
Yeah. Well, that's why when I buy stuff online, I tend to like to buy from reputable breeders. So I know we got to go, but I want to throw this one thing. I got an email today. Remember, I bought that boa that was supposed to be a female, but is a male. Right. So I bought this boa. It looked like everything I wanted, except it has hemipenes, which is the problem. But I kept it. They did do me right. They gave me back part of my money and we were good. And then I said, hey, look, whenever you have more, contact me. Well, they messaged me today and I was like, I'd love to get a female from you, but I just moved and have no money. So, but that was really awesome. They remembered and they reached back out to me. And so that's huge to me just because they could have just said, yeah, whatever. And then moved right along. But that was a big thing for me.
And that's good. It's nice to have that, to maintain that personal connection,
Yeah. To me, it's not hard to be a good breeder. A lot of it is just the ability.
It's just being a good person in general.
Yeah. And some people just fail at that from the get-go. Yeah. So, all right. Yep. We're getting out of here.
All right.
Deuces. Talk to everybody later. That's it. Goodbye.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. See ya.